3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. And you could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We have an action-packed show for you today. Coming up 20 minutes from now, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets is going to stop by live on the show. And he's brought to us today on behalf of the fine folks at Dr. Teal's. The last time I interviewed someone associated with the brand of Dr. Teal's, it was the Aaron Donald interview, where the PR rep intervened on and interjected on my conversation with Aaron Donald. I was like, oh, he's just here to talk on behalf of Dr. Teal's. So I guess we're back in the good graces of the Dr. Teal's community with Garrett Wilson coming on the show today, 20 minutes from now. Clay Harbor, the former NFL tight end, will join us in studio at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then SEC Network Analyst did play for the Florida Gators. Chris Doering will stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Let's start off with the college football playoff rankings. The latest installment of the college football playoff bracket is going to come out later tonight. And there's still a lot on the table. You know, you look at the 4 power conferences that still remain in college football. We know Oregon is in the Big Ten championship game. In all likelihood, they will go up against Ohio State, but still on the table to potentially get in that conference championship game is also Penn State and Indiana. I do not think Indiana is going to lose to Purdue this weekend. I do not think Penn State is going to lose to Maryland, but most importantly, Ohio State is not going to lose to Michigan. I would love to see it happen. I just give you my honest opinions. I don't see a way for Michigan to win this game. So you're going to have Ohio State and Oregon probably in all likelihood be in the Big Ten championship game. So regardless of that result, and if it goes that Indiana beats Purdue, Penn State beats Maryland, Ohio State beats Michigan, regardless of what happens in that Big Ten championship game, for the final installment of the bracket, all 4 of those teams will be the 4 representatives from the Big Ten in the college football playoff. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, if it goes according to plan. In the ACC, we know SMU is in. SMU has Cal this week, so SMU should take care of business, but they're already in the ACC championship game. Clemson plays an SEC team in South Carolina. Clemson could get to the ACC championship game if Miami loses to Syracuse, which is in the realm of possibilities. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a lock that Miami beats Syracuse this weekend. But either way, for the ACC to get 2 teams in the college football playoff, I would say that Miami, SMU, Clemson, Clemson would have to win the conference. But if Miami takes care of business against Syracuse, let's just say, and SMU takes care of business up against Cal, and both of those teams have 1 loss, and the victory in the ACC championship game, Miami over SMU or SMU over Miami, is by a touchdown or less, then I do think there is a chance, and a good chance, that the ACC would send 2 teams into the college football playoff. When you look at the SEC, we know Georgia's in. The only way that I think that Texas A&M makes the college football playoff is obviously if they beat Texas coming up on Saturday. And then I still do think that A&M would have to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. So the odds of A&M getting in, I don't think are all that well. It would be so college football for A&M to lose a heartbreaker to Auburn and a bad Auburn team and then beat Texas coming up this weekend and then lose in the SEC championship game. But I do not think that A&M is going to beat Texas. So I do think we'll see Texas and Georgia in the SEC championship game. And then when you look at the Big 12, who knows who's going to be in the Big 12 championship game? They don't even give you there's like 8 or 9 teams that still remain. And we'll see who the 2 teams will be. In all likelihood, it's probably, I would guess, going to be Arizona State up against Iowa State. But either way, when it comes for the final bracket, there will only be 1 Big 12 team. If I look at the possibilities here, the Big 12 will only put in 1 team. The Big 10 is going to put in 4 teams. The SEC is probably going to put in 3, which is crazy. But there is an avenue and a window for 4. And in order to get the SEC to 4, I think 2 things need to happen. Number 1, and Stu's not going to like to hear this, and this is the forgotten part of the conversation. For the SEC to get 4 teams in this year, you need one of these 2 things to happen. Notre Dame loses to USC this weekend, which is on the table. Personally, I think Notre Dame is going to win. Personally, I feel like Notre Dame is getting slept on nationally because of what happened in week 2 when they lost to Northern Illinois. I know you could question the quality of the opponents, but Notre Dame has done a really good job in this final 2 months of the season. So I'm not thinking Notre Dame is going to beat USC, but if you tell me that we get on in here on Monday and reacting to Notre Dame losing to USC, I would not be shocked. It's just something that I don't anticipate. But if Notre Dame loses to USC, I don't see how you put Notre Dame in the college football playoff. And that could open up a door for a fourth SEC team. The other way is that they screw over the ACC. And they don't take 2 out of these 3 teams, SMU, Miami, and Clemson, which I guess is also in the realm of possibilities. But right now, as we currently sit here, Georgia, I think, is in regardless. Even if Georgia loses the SEC championship game, they'll beat Georgia Tech this weekend. And then even if they lose the SEC championship game, I don't see Georgia getting left out even with 3 losses on the season if the 3rd loss comes in the SEC championship game. If Tennessee, I know Vanderbilt's been gritty. The last 2 weeks haven't gone their way, but I don't see Tennessee losing to Vanderbilt. So they're going to get in. And then right now, I do think even if Texas loses to A&M, I do see Texas still, even with 2 losses, getting into the college football playoff. So it would be interesting and it would be compelling to see what would happen if, let's just play into this game, A&M beats Texas, and then let's just say A&M beats Georgia. A&M is not only in, they could then qualify for a bye because they would be one of the 5 conference champions. If that's the case, I still think Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia would all get in if, let's just say, Texas would only have 2 losses, Georgia would have 3 losses, but it would come the SEC championship game, and assuming Tennessee takes care of business up against Vanderbilt. But then that's the way that the ACC could potentially lose out in terms of getting 2 teams in the college football playoff. Either they look to screw over one of those ACC teams with 2 losses, whoever loses in the conference championship game, because of the fact that they want to propel either a South Carolina, an Alabama, or Ole Miss, or the other way the ACC could get screwed over is if A&M is able to run the table, which I don't think is likely. So there's a lot of scenarios there, but I was really deep diving into this last night to see what the road would be for the SEC to get 4 teams in. A&M winning out would get them 4 teams in, period, stop. But assuming A&M doesn't win out, I guess if you are Alabama or if you're Ole Miss and you pretty much thought your season was over, obviously Ole Miss will beat Mississippi State. Alabama will see if they're going to beat Auburn. But if both those teams take care of business, I do think it's fascinating tonight to see how far Alabama and Ole Miss are going to fall and how far in the rankings are they going to fall, to see if there's at least an avenue to maybe get a little SEC bias and find a way, if it's not A&M, to still get 4 teams in the college football playoff from the SEC. So I know I threw out about 3,000 scenarios to you, but if you are an Alabama and Ole Miss fan, or even a South Carolina fan too, and South Carolina's going to take care of business up against Clemson, which I think they will this weekend, you are also becoming the biggest USC fans this weekend to take away that spot from Notre Dame. And then also you're rooting against Texas A&M. And I guess you're kind of banking on maybe Clemson to win out and win the conference and hope that they then just eliminate SMU and Miami. Or maybe even you have Miami lose this weekend and they don't even get to the ACC championship game when they go up against Syracuse. So those are the options. Those are the thoughts. That's how you get inside the brain of Zach Gelb with the college football playoff rankings right now. But in all likelihood, if we want to operate on what will happen, and I go through the bracket right now and what I think is going to play out tonight, Oregon, Texas, Miami, Boise State. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think those will be the buys. I then have Ohio State playing Arizona State in the 5-12 matchup. In the 6-12, I have Penn State playing SMU. In the 7-10, I have Notre Dame playing Indiana. And in the 8-9, I have Georgia playing Tennessee. So if I go through those 12 teams, and you'll have the latest installment of the college football playoff rankings coming out later tonight, right now, how many of those teams do I feel confident in saying that they will definitely be in the college football playoff? I'll say Notre Dame, because I do think Notre Dame will beat USC. I'll say Indiana, because Indiana will beat Purdue. I'll say Penn State because Penn State's going to beat Maryland. Texas will definitely get in. I can't guarantee you Miami or SMU, even though I do think there's a good chance 2 ACC teams will get in, but at least one will get in. Obviously very confident about Oregon. Obviously very confident about Boise State. I don't see a way Georgia is left out. I don't see a way that Tennessee is left out. I think they'll beat Vanderbilt, and Ohio State's going to get in. And the Big 12, that's one spot reserved. It may be Arizona State. It may be not. But right now, those are the things to look for tonight for the college football playoff rankings. I think the two biggest things, will the ACC get its credit? And I think it will get its due tonight. I do believe the ACC in this installment of the rankings will have 2 teams on the bracket. And then the other thing is to kind of monitor how far your Alabamas and Ole Miss are going to fall, and where do they rank those schools also in alignment with South Carolina, because then we'll get to see, based off the results of this weekend, if there is a spot for a 4th SEC team in that is not named A&M, which one of those teams do they give the early positioning to kind of elevate and catapult yourself into the final rankings after conference championship weekend. So that's what I have my eyes set out on right now. But you tell me if these rankings end up happening tonight, where you get in a first-round matchup, Notre Dame, Indiana, that's fun. Penn State, SMU, that's fun. Georgia, Tennessee, that's awesome. And then Ohio State, Arizona State, you could even make the case how Arizona State's playing right now. That'd be fun as well. You know, it's not the sexiest of the 4 matchups as we've given in the other weeks, but that just happens where the better teams start to rise to the top. And we've had so many dominoes fall where this has been such a chaotic situation. You know, it's kind of wild when you go week to week, you get a sense of who the 12 teams are going to be. And then from week to week, that changes where there's teams that are out of the top 12 because of how many upsets that we've had this year. And in the first year of expanding this bad boy to 12 teams, all hell is broken loose. And I think for the 12-team college football playoff format to work and get the initial respect in year one, they kind of needed all hell to break loose. And it would be wild if you end up having a case where you always thought that 4 SEC teams would get in, maybe in some years even 5, if only 3 end up getting in year one of a 12-team college football playoff format. So once again, Oregon, Texas, Miami, Boise State, I think we'll get buys tonight. Georgia, Tennessee in the 8-9 respectively. Ohio State, Arizona State in the 5-12 respectively. Notre Dame, Indiana, 7-10 in that order. And then Penn State, SMU, 6-11. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We did have Aaron Rodgers earlier today on the Pat McAfee Show. Talk to Pat, and he's been non-committal about his future. He did not rule out returning to the Jets next year. He said if he does want to play, that his priority number 1 would be to return with the New York Jets, but he said it's not 100% certain that he's going to continue this, and he has not made up his mind yet. Let's tap into that Jets locker room. We talked to one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, Garrett Wilson. He's going to join us, and we'll get a little Ohio State, Michigan talk in with Garrett Wilson as well when the Zach Gelb Show returns after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You got Ohio State, Michigan coming up this weekend. And it's weird. I know it's always the game, and there was always be juice around this game. But from where we were last year to where we are this year, this is definitely drastically different. Michigan last year was expected to beat Ohio State. I didn't think Ohio State was ever going to win that game because of Kyle McCord, and Rod Moore made the interception late. This go around with how Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Jim Harbaugh is no longer there. J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum. You could go on and on and on. Mikey Sanders still. I just don't even see a formula outside of, anything could happen in a rivalry game where Michigan is going to beat Ohio State this year. And all the pressure is on Ryan Day, but quite frankly, it goes more than that. You know, I know that when Ryan Day wins this game on Saturday, he's going to throw it in the Michigan fans' face. He's going to throw it into the Michigan coaches and players' face because of how sensitive of a topic this has been. But for Ohio State, they are really a team, when you look at the Buckeyes this year, it's championship or bust for them. You look at how deep we are in the season, there's more than 3 teams that could win the national championship this year in college football. But if you gave me 3 picks to win the national title this year, it's either Oregon, Ohio State, or even Georgia. And we did see the Ohio State Buckeyes go up against Oregon earlier in the season, where you did have Ohio State lose by 1. But since then, Ohio State has gone on to defeat Penn State. They have also gone on to defeat Indiana. And they're in a situation where we could get that rematch in the Big Ten championship between Oregon and Ohio State. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that is going to play on out. And this is a step here this weekend for Ohio State. I do think Ohio State is obviously going to beat Michigan. This is like a 21, 22-point spread. But for the Buckeyes, it's bigger than just beating Michigan this year, because of the fact when you take a look at the landscape and when you take a look at the playoff picture, Ohio State has national championship expectations this year, and they are expected to not only beat Michigan, but to go on and potentially win the national championship. We should be joined in a few moments, or actually right now, we're going to be joined by Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets on behalf of Dr. Teals. Garrett Wilson this season has 69 receptions for 722 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Jets go up against the Seahawks this weekend. And on behalf of Dr. Teals, Garrett Wilson is here with us. Garrett, first off, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. And how you been?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. We were just talking about your Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm a Michigan guy. I like the Michigan Wolverines, but I'll just be honest with you. Ohio State's going to beat up on Michigan pretty well. Where's your belief level, and not only in this game, but the bigger picture for the Buckeyes this year, as they are one of those teams that can go win a national championship?
Yeah, man. I hope you're right. And I didn't know you were a Michigan guy, so I'm sorry about how this year's gone. But on the contrary, like, we've won a lot of games this year. We've played great, but none of it matters if we don't go play great on Saturday and find a way to get it done. So I'm excited to watch that game. I didn't finish my career the way I wanted to against the team up north, and because of that, I'll be watching, probably cheering a little bit too loud, man. But they got a great team this year, and I'm excited to see how it all, finishes up. They got all the tools they need to go win a championship, and with this new 12-team playoff, I'm just excited.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be fun. And my 2 best friends went to Michigan. So since I went to Temple had some success back in my day, but I kind of just adopted the Wolverines. I respect good players, though. Jeremiah Smith, man, what he's been able to do in this freshman season, that's a dog that Ohio State has. I know you guys are wide receiver, pretty much, but how about what the youngster's been able to do?
He's fun to watch. Watching him this past weekend, he made some great catches, but throughout the whole year, he's just been a highlight reel waiting to happen. And not to mention, I just hear he's a great guy, great teammate, someone that walks throughout the facility the right way and handles his business off the field. So, being once in his shoes, I can really respect that, and I can really relate. And I just love to see it, man. He's got a chance to be one of the greats in our game for sure if he keeps going about it the right way like he has.
Yeah, what does that mean to you to be a part of that Ohio State community with all these wide receivers? Because really the last 4 to 6 years, you guys have pumped out a lot of really damn good elite receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, it's special, man. I feel like every weekend that I play on at this level, after the game, I'm meeting up with like 3 or 4 Buckeyes, and when I initially committed there, that was kind of the mindset. It's a brotherhood. It's one of those pro factories, but the brotherhood is real, and the way we all stick together, the way we bring the best out of each other. And I remember when I was there, coming into a group, and Chris Olave had just had a really good not rookie season, but freshman season, and I kind of wanted to find my way to do something like what he had done. So the way he took me under his wing and showed me the way, and it just continues to happen. I try to do the same for Jackson, and I'm sure. Emeka's doing the same thing for Jeremiah, and just all those different type of things, man. That's what it's all about, and that's how you have success like this.
Talking to Garrett Wilson, I know you're going up against Jackson Smith and Jigba on Sunday, Jets and the Seahawks. Just how about your relationship? Like you said, obviously you guys shared a locker room at the same time. You had some overlap at Ohio State.
Yeah, man, that's one of my best friends. Someone that not only one of my friends, but I really just love his game. I'm like a fan of the way he plays football and his mindset and all that, and he knows that. So it'll be our first time going up against each other since he's been in the league. He's been having a great year. I've been able to watch him over the last couple of weeks, and I'm just excited, man. I'm excited to see him. I'm sure after the game we'll swap a jersey and chop it up a little bit, but at the end of the day, we got to find a way to get it done against the Seahawks, and I hope he doesn't go too crazy on us. I hope we find a way to get it rolling this week because we got 6 weeks left to finish this thing the right way, and we can't do that if we don't go play good against the Seahawks.
Well, you've made some heck of some catches this year. I was at that game at MetLife Stadium when I don't know how you still caught that ball. You went all Air Jordan in the end zone up against the Houston Texans. Still looking back at that, I know that was earlier in the month. How do you even explain how you made that catch?
I don't know, man. I just, at the end of the day, sometimes you just try and go up and make a play and it happens. Sometimes when you go up and try and make the same play, it doesn't happen. You can't really put exactly an explanation to it. In that case, I just wanted to make a play, man. And at the end of the day, it was 3rd and 19. They trusted us enough to call all goes, which doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. I feel like a lot of times you get in 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 10 plus, you might kind of settle for the field goal. You might be like, you know what, let's just stay in field goal range. But they took a chance and we took a shot at the end zone. And from that point on, it's my job to go make a play. So I'm just glad I did, man. But maybe I owe it to all the hoops and different things my mom had me doing growing up. I don't know.
Garrett Wilson here with us. We'll talk about Dr. Teals in just a second. So you guys just had your bye week. I'm sure there's a lot of reflection that goes on during the bye week. Obviously, it goes without being said, this season hasn't gone the way that you guys expected it at 3-8. Just how do you kind of look back so far at this season, and why hasn't it been so successful as what people thought was going to happen this year with the Jets?
Yeah, man, it's been a tough go to start this thing off. And like you said, we had a lot of expectations coming in, which makes it even that much more frustrating. I feel like we've all taken our turns as far as defense, offense, special teams, and contributing to not being where we want to be at, and what resulted in us losing games. We haven't played up to our standard on any side of the ball when it's most been needed of us, and all of a sudden you find yourself at 3-8. So I definitely had some time to reflect on that, but we got 6 games left, and we're all going to approach it the right way. We just want to as competitors, go out there and attack the game, leave our imprint on the game, turn on the film after, and be proud of what you put out there. And that's kind of the mindset through all the guys. So it wouldn't matter what our record is right now, but we're going to approach these last 6 like everything's ahead of us.
Yeah, how tough has it been on you personally? I know it's a business, but you lose your head coach, he gets fired. The GM just gets fired as well. Those are guys that you know very well, and the only GM and head coach that you know so far to start your pro football journey. Just how has that been on you personally?
Yeah, man, it's been tough. It definitely puts things in perspective. Like, the only way to really solve this thing is to win games, and to make sure you're seeing familiar faces to win games. And that's always the goal. But when something like this happens, things like this happen, it just goes to show you that, you got to get it done. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of turnaround. And that's not what you want, man. You want to build these relationships up. You want to, find a way to have some longevity with each other. And it's been tough. It's been tough. But like you said, it is a business, and I'm not naive to that fact. So, you just got to find a way to keep digging deep and playing good football so that we can, keep it from happening in the future.
Now, all eyes are on your quarterback and what he's going to do at the end of the year, and what your team is going to do with him as well at the end of the year. In your gut, do you feel like down deep that Aaron will be back with the Jets next year?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I know whatever decision he makes, I'm gonna support him, and all the guys feel the same. We're gonna support him, man. But to play as long as he has and achieve the things he has is no easy feat, man. So we're all honored to play with him these last 2 years, and at the end of the day, being a young guy in the league, to go out on your own terms to play this deep into your career, and all of a sudden have people wondering what you're going to do next because of how great you were is the ultimate goal. So I hope he knows that, and I'm sure he does. But it's regardless, it's been a great career for him, and he knows how I feel. I'd love to have him back, but at the end of the day, he got to do what's best for him.
If they do elect to run it back with these main foundational pieces, but why can next year be drastically different? And why can next year go the way that you thought how this year was supposed to go?
Because we had this year. I feel like this year and the way it's gone, it can definitely be a tool to help us get to that, the pinnacle down the road. And for me personally, I know I've learned a lot from this year, and you can't just lose it all. You can't just take it and let it go out the other. This happened for a reason, and truly reflecting on it and paying attention to why it happened might be the reason why you go all the way here in a few years and next year. So I think because of the way this year went and the things we've learned and the way we've gone about it and how it hasn't maybe paid off, will be the reason why we're better in these next 6 weeks and the reason why we'll be better in the future.
What do you think this team needs in their next head coach? Like, what are some qualities that you look for, Garrett Wilson?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. That's tough. I've never really concerned myself with it too much. I love Coach Saleh. And I think he went about things in the right way. We found a way to challenge us every day, and that's something that I think is important to have in a head coach. Because it's a long season. So if you find a coach that can challenge you every day, challenge the group, challenge you individually, all of a sudden it'll bring the best out of you. But yeah, man, I really don't know. It's tough. We got people that study things like that every day as far as the Jets, and the Jets facility, and I trust them to, make the right decision for the team.
Yeah, there's been so many rumors. Like, you don't even know what's true or not. Like, Rex Ryan coming back, John Gruden. Do they get Shedeur Sanders in the draft and then also bring in Coach Prime? Like, have you seen all those rumors? Any of those pique your interest? Just wondering.
I see them every now and then. I really try and not, go on Twitter too much and scroll because I know how
crazy it could get.
I know how crazy it can get, man. Sometimes you can get a whole thing in your head that's completely wrong just because you were scrolling on Twitter. So I try and stay away. But yeah, I'll be lying if I say I didn't see some of it. And at the end of the day, man, I don't know. I just want to go out and play good football, make sure that I'm doing my part so that whoever we do bring in as a head coach has all the confidence in me and we keep him around.
All right, Garrett Wilson, tell me what you're doing today on behalf of the fine folks at Dr. Teal's.
Yeah, man, I'm working with a brand that, I've been not necessarily working with because I was just using it out of the goodness for my body since I was a 14-year-old. So it's really crazy and awesome to be working with Dr. Teal's, but it all started with my mom and her using it since I was a young kid. And all of a sudden I got to the age where I was a little sore, I was a little hurting, and all of a sudden I was like, Mom, let me see some of that Dr. Teal's. Let me get some of that salt in my bath. And ever since then, it's been history, man. It's been something that I've been using as a part of my routine since I was in 7th grade playing quarterback. Once a week, I like to get in the hot tub and load it up with some Epsom salt, lavender scent, and make sure that I'm giving my mind and my body, my muscles what it needs to be at 100% on Sunday. This is a long season, and the way any cheat you can find to recover, any cheat you can find to be stress free is important, man. So Dr. Teal's has been all that and then some for me, and I'm really excited to be working with him.
I know you got to bounce, but one last thing that I'll ask you, Garrett Wilson. I know we started the conversation with the Buckeyes. Why is Ryan Day the right guy, by the way, for Ohio State? Why will he eventually bring Ohio State a national championship, in your opinion?
Yeah, man, he just keeps getting better. He just keeps getting better and better. I was there for his first year as a head coach, and now watching him now, I can just see the growth and the comfort that he has, being in year 4 or 5, I guess it is. I don't know, maybe year 6 of him being the head coach at Ohio State, but just someone that going through my recruitment that I had full belief in, and when he was announced as the head coach, it was no wavering because I knew what type of guy I was getting, and he's a guy that is an offensive guru, first of all, and I know he's kind of taking a back seat on that, but he's always trying to improve himself, find a way to get the upper hand on the defense. He's not stuck in his ways. He really wants to understand the team that he has, and he knows that it's different every year, and you gotta adjust your coaching style to that. So just the way that he's like water, I guess the best way to put it, instead of being which you see a lot of times with coaches maybe being a little stubborn and not willing to change. He's not that at all. He's more like water, man. He's willing to truly move in whatever way it takes to get the best out of his team. And with that, I think that it's coming back to Ohio State soon. It's coming back to Columbus soon, which is where it belongs, man. So I'm excited to watch this weekend and see how things turn out the rest of the season.
Well, good health, good luck the rest of the way. We appreciate you doing this today, Garrett Wilson.
I will, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. Anytime. There he is, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets on behalf of Dr. Teals. Appreciate him stopping by today. We'll react to what he had to say about Aaron Rodgers when we come on back. Also, we'll get into a few superstar shout-outs as well. We'll shout out a player in the NFL, a coach in the NFL, a college football player, and a college football coach as well on the other side. Update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's brought to you by Progressive, who's proud to support veterans and small businesses with their annual Keys to Progress vehicle giveaway program, helping our heroes drive their lives forward. Learn more at keystoprogress.com. Age is catching up with Aaron Rodgers, who has seen a dip in his Hall of Fame production this year. The 40-year-old quarterback told the Pat McAfee Show he hasn't made a decision on next year. He would like to return to the Jets, but is going to wait and see what the Jets do in the offseason to fill their general manager and head coaching vacancies and if they want him back. North Carolina got a head jump on the offseason coaching carousel, firing Mac Brown before the season finale. The 73-year-old owns the most wins in school history with 113 spread across 2 stints. The Tar Heels are currently 6-5, and Brown will lead them against North Carolina State. The move does come, though, after Brown said publicly yesterday that he intended to return next year. The NBA fined the Hawks $100,000 for holding out Trae Young from an NBA Cup game. A league review concluded an independent physician concluded that he could have played. College basketball today, San Diego State leads Creighton 67-50 in the second half. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, the Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the armed forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's players, Browns defensive end Myles Garrett. In Thursday's win over the Steelers, Garrett had 3 sacks and a forced fumble. On the season, Garrett has 10 sacks, which is tied for third in the league behind only Trey Hendrickson and Danielle Hunter. Let's get one clip in here from Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. We were just joined by Garrett Wilson a few moments ago, and he said he doesn't know what Aaron's going to do, but he knows that that Garrett wants Aaron to come back for this upcoming season, that Rodgers knows that. Here is Aaron Rodgers, though, if he wants to play for the Jets in 2025.
As far as my future goes, I haven't told anybody in my life that I want to play in 2025 and not in the Jets. So that's 100% false. I actually said the opposite. You know, I said that I'm going to wait and see what happens at the end of the season and if they want me back and what happens with Brick and what happens with the offensive staff and obviously the GM at the time. And there's a lot of things out of my control when it comes to that. But I've really enjoyed my time in New York. I mean, obviously we haven't had success that we've all wanted to have, but I came here to win here. So I'm not jumping off ship, like, oh, I definitely want to play and not in New York. Like, I don't even know if I want to play yet, but New York would be my first option.
So that's why this is interesting to me. Earlier in the month, not a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, like earlier this month, I went to the Jets-Texans game, and I asked Aaron Rodgers straight up, has it at least crossed your mind that these final 2 months or these next 2 months could be your last 2 months in the NFL? And he chuckled at me. He kind of looked into my soul is the way that I interpreted it. And I kind of took the chuckle as, hey, buddy, nice try. I don't know who the bleep you are, and I'm not going to give you a yes here, so I'm just going to say no. And then Rodgers also came out like a week or a week and a half later, maybe 2 weeks max, and goes, yeah, I intend to play next year. And now it's, I don't even know if I'm going to play. So here starts the drama with Aaron Rodgers and his future with the New York Jets. We'll get into more of that coming up later with the news brief. But he wants to first need to decide if he wants to come back. Then the decision for him is, does he want to return to the Jets or does he want to go somewhere else with 1 year left in the contract? And then even if he says, yeah, I want to play for the Jets also need to have him back for next year. So there's a lot of dominoes still to fall on that one. All righty, let's get to a little Superstar Shoutouts.
Another week in the books. Who stood out on the gridiron? We give you our Superstar Shoutouts right here on the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, Stu, I'll start things off. Let's go to Saquon Barkley. He had 255 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Had a 70-yard rushing touchdown, a 72-yard rushing touchdown. And also, don't forget about those 4 catches for 47 yards as well. Eagles clobber the Los Angeles Rams by a final score of 37-20 behind Saquon Barkley, who's now making a push for the MVP. He's my NFL player.
All right, my NFL player is Sam Darnold. Another good game and another win for the Vikings against the Bears this weekend. Completed 22 of 34 passes, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And on the season, he has 21 touchdowns, which is 4th, and 2,700 yards, which is 9th. So just a really good season from Darnold.
All righty, I will go to my NFL coach this week, and it's a man that was coaching last night in the Who's Got It Better Than Us? Nobody Bowl, or as it may be referred to as the Harbaugh Bowl. You did see John get the best of Jim. John has now defeated Jim 3 times in his career, 3-0 in the 3 matchups that they have participated and done battle against. And I thought there was a decision in this game last night, which was kind of crazy. It was 4th and 1. 4th and 1 at their own 16 in the final 2 minutes or so in the first half. Harbaugh, John elects to go for it. When I thought they were going to punt it, they got the first, eventually got a field goal out of it. And, they got a touchdown out of it. And that ends up being a big part in that game. The Chargers did answer back with a field goal on it. But then in the second half, it was man, oh man, aggressive. I think they went for like every 4th down last night, it felt like. So give a shout out to John Harbaugh for not only beating his brother, but the aggressive nature he displayed last night.
All right. For the first time, I think I'm going to go with a non-head coach for mine.
Ooh, you're going to coordinator.
I'm going to go with the coordinator, and that is Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. They just continue to be what I think is the most exciting offense to watch. They could do it on the air. They could do it on the ground. They're 10-1. They're 1st in points per game, 2nd in yards per game. You just know he's going to get a head coach job, but this is a job that he's done not only this year, but last year. He's just incredible.
All right, let's go to college football. When we get to running backs, what a career Devin Neal has had with Rock Chalk Jayhawk KU. First season, 158 carries at 707 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. Second season, 180 carries, 1,090 rushing yards, and 9 rushing touchdowns. Last year, 203 carries, 1,280 rushing yards, and 16 rushing touchdowns. This year, $199, 1,133 yards, and 15 rushing touchdowns. And also, when you take a look at their performance up against Colorado, and Kansas has been rolling as of late, Colorado, he had 37 carries for 207 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and by the way, had 4 catches for 80 yards and another touchdown. So make that 4 total touchdowns, over 200 total yards in the game, nearly 300 for Devin Neal, as Kansas got a big win up against Colorado. They've also recently defeated BYU and Iowa State. But give the shout out to Devin Neal.
All right, I'll go with another running back out of the Big 12, and that is Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. 28 carries, 147 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns Saturday against BYU. 1,200 yards on the season, 14 rushing touchdowns.
You're missing the biggest part, though. It doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but when all that mayhem was going on down, when they had the fans storming the field because they thought the game was over after that dopey strategy by Arizona State, just go score a touchdown, go up by 12. I don't know why you started dropping back and running the wrong direction and throw the ball up in the air, and then the ball lands with 1 second left. It was just a total disaster. absolute disaster on 4th down 2, which then sets up that Hail Mary play by BYU, which, everyone, if you don't have a dog in the fight, you were kind of rooting that the chaos would lead to a touchdown. But you have all the fans storming the field, and he was the only one that could get everybody off the field. Because when your star running back and the pulse of your program is basically saying, all right, let's keep it moving, you'll probably listen to that person over a security guard. All right, let me get to my coach. It was done. It was over with for Billy Napier. He got blown out at home against Miami. He got blown out at home up against Texas A&M. It wasn't a matter of if he was going to get fired. It was just when. And we were circling our calendar. Was it going to be Tennessee? Was it going to be Georgia? Was it going to be Texas? And the AD comes out before that big stretch of games, and he's like, hey, we're keeping this guy. And I know DJ Lagway now playing has been a big role of their turnaround. But to be able to defeat LSU, that's one thing, 27-16. Then to defeat Ole Miss is another thing. And basically, in all likelihood, eliminate them from the college football playoff. Back-to-back weeks, Billy Napier has done a heck of a job. And I would have never thought he would change the outlook or provide any optimism for Florida fans with how this season did start. They're now 6-5, and they play Florida State this weekend. As that program, geez, what the heck has happened to Florida State? But give a little credit to Billy Napier.
All right, and my college football coach will be SMU head coach Rhett Lashley. 33-7 over Virginia, 10-1 on the season, a top 5 offense in terms of points per game. Just a great offensive mind that's going to probably get a bigger job soon, you would think.
Yeah, you would think. I saw UNC did open up today. I don't know if you leave for that job necessarily. SMU is in the ACC, so probably not now. When they were in the American Athletic Conference, potentially. But, you take a look at UNC. That's a solid job. It's not going to be SMU. Obviously, the coach at SMU is not going to go there. But, does Elijah Robinson on the Syracuse staff goes there? Does the Tulane coach end up going there? How about Charles Huff at Marshall? Possibly. I saw our buddy Dan Mullen's name has been thrown out there. I even saw recently that Arthur Smith was a name to watch. I don't know if I'm hiring Arthur Smith to run my college program. I need a little bit more personality as my head coach, especially in this name, image, and likeness era. But to get serious here for a second, Mac Brown's a heck of a person, a legendary coach. I'm okay with trying to get younger. He did a heck of a job, always getting them bowl eligible every year he was there since getting that job back after the whole Larry Fedora experiment was just a disaster at the end outside of that one season where Fedora had like 11 wins. So hopefully you get a nice little send-off here up against NC State this weekend for Mac Brown as he's going to coach this weekend. I don't know if he's going to coach the bowl game, but he was informed today that he is not going to be back next season as the head football coach of the Tar Heels, probably coming to a close on a legendary coaching career.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. And now joining us in studio, former NFL tight end, friend of the program, in Clay Harbor. Clay, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Zach, but I'm covering a lot of Bear stuff right now, so it's tough out there in Chicago. Getting on this 5-game losing streak, going from 4-2 to 4-7, and some heartbreaking losses, blocked field goals, Hail Marys, onside kick, recover it just to lose again. So it's been tough out there.
So I just got to peel back the curtain a little bit for everyone. So Clay just came from the gym, and I know you don't like Chip Kelly, but that's your Chip Kelly kind of looking smoothie. What is in that green smoothie?
This is spirulina, protein, kale, spinach, some vitamin D. Just everything the body needs after a good workout, Zach. Man, this is full time here, man. We're working out. We're staying healthy. We're getting the nutrients in.
Yeah, and I follow you on Instagram, so every day Clay posts a photo, and it's him without a shirt on. So I'm surprised he even actually eat food. It makes sense that that's just like liquids only. What do you do for Thanksgiving? Because you work out so much that you could afford to really be just a normal person on Thanksgiving and pig out. But I know you're a health nut. Do you go crazy for Thanksgiving?
I go pretty ham. I'm an ingredient guy, though. So, like, if I'm eating something, if it's a dessert, I make sure that I can pronounce the ingredients. For anybody out there who's trying to watch their weight over, just make sure you can pronounce the ingredients.
Okay.
You want 5 ingredients, 6, 7. You don't want something with 10 ingredients.
High fructose corn syrup?
None of that. Something you can't pronounce, and that's where you get into trouble.
Okay. So are you a turkey guy on Thanksgiving?
Oh, love turkey. Absolutely. Big turkey guy.
I hate turkey. We don't even do turkey anymore. We do a lasagna.
It's hard to do right because it's so easy to make it dry. You gotta make sure that you cook it the right way.
I mean, you gotta
juicy.
fry it. If you're down south, I think I could eat turkey at Thanksgiving because you fry it, you put the Cajun seasoning and all that on it.
And then there's certain parts of the turkey that are drier than others. So if you get the right part, you'll get something juicy, a little more moist, easier to eat.
All righty, let's get to the Bears. Clay Harbor here with us. I saw the smoothie. I go, what the heck is in that? It does look like kale and spinach and all that stuff. I thought maybe some avocado in there as well.
There might be, actually.
Yeah. So keep that away from me. I can't digest avocado. I'll be throwing up projectile. I'll be like the Bears.
That's bad.
It will just be a mess. So what's going on here with the Bears? I think Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback. Can the Bears mess him up? Absolutely. They mess up every quarterback pretty much. But give me kind of the lay of the land as this went from, wow, the Bears, they could actually be a playoff team, to now it's, all right, the season's over.
Honestly, it comes down to accountability, and this is me speaking from a player, a guy who's played the game, is when your coach fails to take accountability, it trickles on down the team. After that Hail Mary, I think that game lost probably 2 to 3 games for the Bears. That one play, not just the one play. And it wasn't the way.
And they were so flat against Arizona, too.
So flat against Arizona. You lose to the Patriots, and it just completely deflated them. And the thing it was Matt Eberflus. You saw it when he gets on the podium, he gets a chance to talk about what happened. He's out there saying, I wouldn't have changed anything with the play before the Hail Mary to give up that 15 yards. He wouldn't have called a timeout before the Hail Mary to make sure everything's in place. You saw Harbaugh last week. Same situation came up. He did everything different. He took away the sideline. He called the timeout before the Hail Mary. Then you had Eberflus, when they got the blocked field goal, had an extra time to take another run, maybe another pass play, run play, whatever, to get closer, to kick a better field goal. Then Harbaugh ends up running a touchdown in. So you saw exactly what the Chargers did with an aggressive coach that Eberflus didn't do. And the thing that happened was Eberflus didn't take accountability for where he messed up. So then you got the players going on radio shows, going on 670 Score in Chicago, going on ESPN Chicago saying we should have called a timeout. We should have taken away the sidelines. I've talked to Coach about this, and they're airing the dirty laundry, and it's a big thing in Chicago. Then you saw it kind of rolled over into the next couple of weeks, and now the Bears go from 4-2, playoff consideration, to firing their offensive coordinator and not even being close with a division that's obviously the best division in football.
Do you believe in the quarterback?
Yeah, I think these last couple of weeks, Thomas Brown has done a great job, because I think the belief with everybody in Chicago went from, wow, we really found something after you played a couple of bad teams. The Jacksonville game in London, you come back, you think that Caleb Williams could really be him. Then you got a few game run where Caleb just looked bad. He's 9 sacks against the Patriots, who the previous 6 games didn't even have 9 sacks. So he was just holding the ball too long. And you go, what's going on here? This isn't the same guy we saw. So then in comes Thomas Brown, and he did some things that were noticeably different. What he said in his press conference, to me, was perfect. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he goes, we're going to design some plays to get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands as quickly as possible. But then, situationally, when it's relevant and when it calls for it, we're going to let him go out there and be Superman. And that is what Thomas Brown did. You got quick screens, you got quick throws, quick game, get the ball out of his hands. But when it's 3rd and 10, you need a play, he tells him over the headset. Caleb said, Thomas Brown tells me over the headset, okay, it's Superman time. Now you got to go make a play. Dude, this is what we drafted you for. And that's what's happened. These last 2 weeks, he's getting the ball out faster than he has. His 3rd down conversion rate is the best it's been all season long. He's been making way more plays with his feet. There's more zone read. He's scrambling. He's running more. And it's all just kind of come together. And I know it's only a two-game sample size, which isn't perfect. You want more. But you can just see the difference in the confidence that this guy has going down the field at the end of these game situations, putting your team in position to win. If you don't have a block field goal, if you do some of these things right, he could have had a couple of these big-time signature wins where he came from behind and got the W.
talking to Clay Harbor, who joins us right now. Eberflus is gone at the end of this year, right? He's not coming back next year.
I don't think, even if he does what he did last year, because you remember last year at this time, people thought he was gone, but he ended up finishing 4-2 and somehow saving himself, which was a mistake, because it's the same thing the Chicago Bears do over and over again. You see with you go back to Mitch Trubisky. You had John Fox. You kept him for a year. You fire Fox. You bring in Nagy. Now Nagy has Trubisky for a year. Then Nagy drafts Fields. They fire Nagy. Now Fields is with a new head coach, Eberflus. Eberflus cuts Fields. Now Eberflus drafts Caleb Williams. Now it's going to be a new coach that didn't draft Caleb Williams. You just keep doing the same trend. You're telling me you can't figure this thing out? Definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again. You had a chance to reset everything, bring in a new coach on the same timeline.
And they could have got Harbaugh, maybe.
You didn't even have a conversation with Harbaugh? A quarterback, a guy that played quarterback, was it great in Chicago? You didn't even have a conversation with him because you're sticking with Matt Eberflus? I'm sorry. At the end of last season, I said, okay, Eberflus did do some good things. His defense looked good. But you have a rookie quarterback. You have a chance to tie your head coach to him. Go out and have some conversations with these big-time guys. There were rumors out there that Ben Johnson would have had conversations with Chicago if Chicago would have talked to him. Harbaugh obviously would have had conversations. He used to play here. He used to live here. He said nothing but good things about Chicago. To not even go out and have those talks, Ryan Poles really missed on that one, but I think you have to get rid of him. He's missed on 2 offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, Shane Waldron, fires defensive coordinator, Alan Williams. So this guy just doesn't know how to hire a staff.
And here I think is the biggest indictment on him, and you talked about it. There's no structure. There's no control in the locker room. Like, you could have bad losses and the rug doesn't get pulled out from underneath you because the players respect the coach. The players don't respect the coach right now. And I know people go, oh, they got to bring in an offensive-minded head coach. I don't think you need to bring in an offensive-minded head coach. I think you need to bring in a coach who, I don't think you need a disciplinarian, but you can't be a player coach that is a doormat. You got to be, if you're going to bring in a player's coach, He's got to be like a Dan Campbell. He's got to be like a Jim Harbaugh, someone that still, it's his word, and you're not going to put up with any of this BS that goes on in this locker room right now.
And I've been on different teams, man. And I'll tell you, there's never been a bigger culture shift for me. I played in Jacksonville Jaguars for 4 years, right? Then I go to New England. And to go from Gus Bradley, who was an awesome guy, but that culture of striving for greatness, positive reinforcement. We have a great culture. Sometimes it don't work unless you have the right guys in there. Then you go to New England, and it's just accountability, do your job, accountability. And obviously that works a lot better. Sometimes to me, yes, it's cool to have a great culture. Your players feel like they can go out and talk to the media and tell them that you should have called a timeout. Tyreek Stevenson, after the Hail Mary, when he found out he was getting benched, he left practice for a little bit, but he came back, so it's fine.
No, it's not.
If you do that in New England, you leave practice. Here's what you do. When you go to the locker room, you grab your keys, you jump in your car, and you drive to the airport.
Yeah.
Because you are not getting back with all your stuff. You are not getting back in that locker room. Bill Belichick, you are taking accountability for leaving practice. So you got to have a guy that takes accountability. And if there's one thing I could say that Eberflus did wrong, was he just keeps, when he knows he did something wrong and should have even – 2 weeks ago when he got the field goal blocked, Matt, looking back, would you have maybe run another play because you kicked it on second down? You had 35 seconds left. No, I liked where we were. And
I got to talk to the league office too, right? He thought there should have been a penalty.
Yeah, there should have been a penalty. Take accountability. Yes, I should have ran to get closer. Looking back, this week we saw Jim Harbaugh ran with the Chargers. He busted a touchdown. Didn't even have to kick the field goal. The Hail Mary. Should you have called a timeout? Should you have maybe not given up the 15 yards before the Hail Mary? No, if we would have just let them not given up the 15 yards there, they would just thrown the Hail Mary then. The Hail Mary's at 80 yards instead of 65. I don't care. Jaden Daniels isn't going to throw the ball 80 yards at the end zone. So just take accountability, and that goes down to your team. And now you got everybody in there. It's like Teflon, man. Nothing sticks to anybody because nobody wants to take accountability because it starts with your leaders. It starts with your coach, and he couldn't do that. He couldn't take accountability.
So that's a big problem with the Bears right now. I think the other thing, Clay Harbor, is you had so many guys who were so outspoken last year about keeping Justin Fields. I know DJ Moore played well, but that relationship right now just doesn't seem right in Chicago. How much of an issue is that some guys are still thinking about the old quarterback and aren't really giving Caleb a full, fair chance here?
You know, that was a thought earlier on in the season because some of the guys were really going to bat for Justin.
Yeah.
And everybody loved him in that locker room. But Caleb honestly has done a good job of winning that locker room. He came in, I was covering a lot of training camp. I mean, the guy works hard. He stays after. He puts in his time. And he did a good job of winning the team. So I don't think that's really a thing. I mean, it's more of a thing in the fan base than it is in the locker room, I think. But it just comes down to utilizing Caleb right and putting him in the best situation to win football games. And I think that Thomas Brown has shown that how much an offensive coordinator can mean in that situation, because Shane Waldron, sometimes you want to adapt players to your system. No, you need to adapt your system to players. A player like Caleb Williams, adapt your system to him. Okay, he does things so well, and you are not changing things up. You think he's this drop back statue passer in the pocket like Rex Grossman in Chicago is just going to stay? No, get this guy on the move. Run some zone read. Run some quick plays, and then you let him go out and make some of his plays off platform stuff. But don't treat him like every quarterback you ever had. Like adapt and improvise with your players. Put them in the best place, the best chance to make plays. And Shane Waldron, that's why he doesn't have a job. I mean, he's walked away with $5 million that he didn't earn. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad deal, right? But that's why he doesn't have a job right now.
Clay Harbor here with us in studio. It is the Zach Gelb Show. When we get to the next coach of the Bears, you hear the names: Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick. Who's the name that you think needs to be the next coach of the Chicago Bears, in your opinion?
I mean, this is a tough one. I like Ben Johnson just because he's been so consistent with that offense. But then again, it's like how, Jared Goff isn't Caleb Williams. Like, how are you going to work with Jared Goff? I think he would be good, though. He's in that system with Dan Campbell, who is my former tight end coach. I love the way Dan Campbell treats his players with respect, but also demands the most of them in a locker room with them, in a meeting room with them. He demands a lot of you. He wants you got to know your stuff. You got to be on your stuff, but he treats you with such respect, pulls for you, and he knows the game so much. I know he comes off as some people as like this meathead that just likes to, put the dip in, watch some football, man. These guys, you got to go out there. Okay, guys, we got practice today. He'd be in the meeting room. You guys know this stuff. Just go out there, play physical. But he was a smart coach, man. The guy knew his stuff, and he puts you in good position. So I think Ben Johnson, learning under him, would be great to bring him to Chicago, because a team really rallies around a guy like him. Then obviously, Vrabel would be one of those guys, rule with an iron fist. But
to me, I think Vrabel is the safest play, because I look at Ben Johnson. Everyone loves him. How many times have you seen the hotshot coordinator not turn out to be a good coach? Belichick, I'm the biggest fan of Belichick, but also, can him and Caleb really mesh? I have questions about that. Vrabel, he's that perfect blend of, I'm a player's coach, but I'm not a doormat. And this guy had Ryan Tannehill in an AFC championship game.
Yeah. No, Vrabel he'd be a Bear-style coach, too, because he's that defensive-minded, hard-nosed guy, stern. I've known guys that have played for him. They'll like him. They'll love him. But he's one of those guys. He came up, playing under Belichick. So he's got a little Belichick in him. He's going to demand respect. Belichick, I just think he's too old to come in with a second-year, 23-year-old quarterback. Southern California, played at USC. But the other guy I think could get a chance would be maybe a Kellen Moore. You see what he's been able to do in Philadelphia. Obviously, he has Saquon Barkley, and he has a lot of weapons there, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. But I think he's done a great job.
You can't hire Kellen Moore, though.
Yeah. I think he's on the list somewhere. And then who else do we got here?
What about Cliff Kingsbury?
No, I think at one point Cliff Kingsbury would be on the list, but he's kind of getting figured out.
Half.
Joe Brady is another name that's a young guy. You've seen what he's doing in Buffalo. Josh Allen up for Hall of Fame, and Josh Allen is a Caleb Williams type player to me. Obviously, Caleb is, I'm not saying Caleb's Josh Allen, but Caleb does a lot of things like Josh Allen. He can extend plays. He can run. He's got a big arm. He can do the off-platform stuff. He's a young guy that could grow with somebody. Joe Brady, when I was in New Orleans and Dan Campbell was my tight end coach, guess who my assistant tight end coach was? Joe Brady. Unbelievable guy. And back then he was a lot younger. He was, just coming out of college himself. Unbelievable guy. Extremely smart. Wants to learn everything. Came up with Sean Peyton, obviously, there in New Orleans, so he knows a lot about offensive football. I think he'd be a great coach to kind of put in with a young quarterback, younger team. Now you got Joe Brady, offensive-minded guy. Got a lot of respect from his players out there in Buffalo, doing a lot of good things with that offense, and they don't have a ton of weapons either. Look at Buffalo. They don't have a ton of wide receivers. They got a couple decent tight ends, couple decent wide receivers. I know they traded for
Amari Cooper.
And that's helped them a little bit.
Drafted Keon Coleman. James Cook has been
James Cook, yeah.
Outside of Josh Allen, James Cook's their best offensive player.
But that's not a stacked team. You know, that's not a stacked team. So I think he's done a lot with a little bit.
Is Josh Allen your MVP right now, or is it Saquon or Lamar?
I would go, and I am a little bit biased, obviously, but I think it's Saquon, then Josh, then Lamar. And I know Lamar's kind of a prisoner of his past because of what he's done in the playoffs. And everybody's like, we want to see Lamar in the playoffs. We want to see Lamar in the playoffs. I think they should take the MVP award. Zach, call me crazy, call me insane, and give it to the player who plays the best after the entire season's over.
That's just the Super Bowl MVP then.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's what would happen. No. Just hand it out there in the regular season. You know, so many people that complicate this thing. The MVP's for the regular season. Then what happens in the postseason, I don't care because it's not how you judge the MVP. That's for the regular season.
But to me, in football, the best player, to call yourself the best player in football when you disappear in the playoffs, that's not fair. That's when the best players come out. I know you said it, then you're the Super Bowl MVP. But even if a guy loses the Super Bowl, he plays well in the biggest leverage game in the world of any sporting event. I know soccer fans out here in Europe and stuff are cursing me out right now. Okay, in America at least.
Yeah.
That matters the most. But, I mean, call me crazy. Give out the MVP after the playoffs, after the Super Bowl. But right now, Saquon, what he has done is incredible. And obviously people say, well, look at his offensive line. Yeah, his offensive line is good. DeAndre Swift didn't do that last year. Yeah, I mean...
And he's not playing with Kelsey.
He's not playing with Kelsey, and you see how much better he makes that team, and he's just closing out games. He's just... They're handing the ball. He is closing out games. I got a ton of stats. I was doing a call with a Philadelphia station just about like the incredible stuff that Saquon's done. And then obviously Josh Allen beat Patrick Mahomes. I think he's like 4-1 in the regular season against Patrick Mahomes.
They won the last 4. Yeah, in the regular
season. And he just can't beat him in the playoffs. But overall, I'd say Saquon, Josh, Lamar. Who do you got?
I would say Josh Allen is one because the MVP is now a quarterback award. And I would say the offensive player of the year is going to be Saquon Barkley. That's probably the way that I think it's going to go on out there. All righty, before we get you out of here, Clay Harbor, Super Bowl prediction right now. You've seen now 11 weeks of the season as we gear up for Week 12, starting up on Thursday with the triple header. You got the Bears and the Lions, the Giants and the Cowboys, the Dolphins and the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. Who gets out of the AFC? Who gets out of the NFC?
NFC's interesting, but I'm going to stick with the same team that I said last time I was in here before the season started. I said the Eagles. I went to training camp. This team with Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown is getting better. I said Quinyon Mitchell, the guy's incredible. Cooper DeJean hadn't played yet, but I thought the defense was getting much better under Vic Fangio, which they had. They're a top 5 defense. I think they're first in yards allowed in the entire NFL. To go along with that offense, Jalen Hurts playing well. I got to stick with the Eagles. I think
no concern on Sirianni.
No concern to Sirianni. He's like, look at his winning percentage. With coaches over 50 games, I think he's 5th all time in winning percentage. So some stat I saw today. He's allowed, kind of obnoxious a little bit, and he doesn't got the best reputation, but the guy does win football games. I think a couple of teams that are under the radar. I think the Lions, obviously, we got to look out for the Lions, but I think the Vikings. You look at what happened last week against the Bears. The Bears are actually a very formidable defense. They completely took away Justin Jefferson. You saw what Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson being back was able to do to him. And Aaron Jones had a great job rushing. And then Brian Flores can confuse a lot of teams. Under the radar, keep your eyes on the Vikings, keep your eyes on the Lions. And then the AFC, I'm going to stick with the same team I said when I was here last time as well, and that's the Chiefs. And I know they haven't looked good. They're getting taken down to the wire by Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. They get beat by the Bills, but I still love the Chiefs. I think after the Chargers, the Harbaugh Bowl. I think after the Chargers game where the Ravens beat the Chargers, you don't have Roquan Smith. There's still some concerns about that defense, but Lamar Jackson, he's got to break through eventually. I don't think he's a guy that's going to get shut out. It's just going to be completely Mahomes era. So I think Chiefs will win it, but then watch out for the Ravens. And then I do like a very under the radar team who's kind of coming in their own right now. Might not even make the playoffs, but if they do, the Miami Dolphins.
You think Tua and that team, they could go on the road and win a big game?
I for some reason, the way they've been playing, the defense, the offense, Tua comes back. To me, they're just like a team of destiny with how Tua went out. They come back. They're still in this thing. They're playing some good football right now. You still got all those weapons. I think the Dolphins can make some noise, but obviously Chiefs, Ravens, watch out for the Dolphins. NFC side, Eagles, Lions, watch out for the Vikings.
How about that? I will go probably, it's not chalk in terms of the AFC, but I'd take the Bills. I have a Super Bowl ticket on them that I just placed down over the weekend at plus 700. And then I'm loving the Lions. I have them at plus 600 as well to win the whole thing.
And we were just talking beforehand. Look at the defense.
Yeah.
I said the only thing that concerns me is the defense. The defense is good.
Yeah. All right, he's Clay Harbor. Clay, appreciate you always coming in. Enjoy whatever concoction you have in that cup right there. Whatever that is. There he is. He's Clay Harbor. It is the Zach Gelb Show. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back after these short messages. Sports fans, listen up. 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and bladder leaks could be a side effect. That's why Depend is teaming up with the Prostate Cancer Foundation to encourage screening, because health is a long game and it's yours to win. Now, here's the cool part. Through November, Depend is contributing up to $300,000 to prostate cancer research by donating 40 cents for every purchase of Shields, Guards, and Real Fit products. Void in Mississippi. Learn more at Depend.com.
You're in a 4.5 minute break. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I think the two most prestigious awards in college football are the Heisman Trophy and the Maxwell Award. And quite frankly, they're pretty much the same thing, just there's more notoriety these days with the Heisman Trophy. But the Heisman Trophy goes to the most outstanding player in college football. The Maxwell Award, this is right from their website. Established in 1937, the Maxwell Award is one of the most prestigious honors in college football. It's presented annually to the most outstanding player in the sport, recognizing excellent on the field and exceptional contributions to the game. So pretty much the same thing. So, Stu, this could give us a little preview of who will get an invite to New York. Now, they could have more than just 3 finalists for the Heisman Trophy. I think you'll get 5 there. You'll definitely get 4. But if you had to take a guess, the 3 finalists that were announced earlier today for the Maxwell Award, who do you think the 3 finalists were?
All right, I'll say Travis Hunter.
He was a finalist, listed as an athlete from Colorado.
Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty, correct. Running back, Boise State.
And I'll say Cam Ward as the 3rd.
That's who I would have thought.
Okay.
It is not Cam Ward.
Is it Dylan Gabriel?
It is Dylan Gabriel. That's surprising to me. Now, Dylan Gabriel is on the best team in the country. So usually if you're the quarterback on the best team in the country, you're going to get an invite to a lot of these awards. But if you're going to tell me only one quarterback is going to be there, personally, I think you got to put Cam Ward over Dylan Gabriel. To me, Cam Ward has had more of an impressive individual season over Dylan Gabriel. And as a Heisman Trophy voter, and I don't put my vote in until after conference championship weekend. This is obviously a different, criteria, different award. But when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, it drives me bonkers that people who vote before conference championship weekend, because the voting opens up, I believe, on Monday, I think. Like right after rivalry weekend, it opens up, or some point that week. You need to wait to after conference championship weekend, because things could change. There have been years where it's been down to the wire, and you got to see how conference championship weekend does play out. But in this case for the Maxwell, no problem whatsoever with Ashton Jeanty being a finalist. No problem whatsoever with Travis Hunter being a finalist. To me, for the Heisman Trophy, I said this for a while, I think only Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter could win the Heisman Trophy this year. But if you're going to put one quarterback in for the Maxwell, I thought it would have been Cam Ward over Dylan Gabriel. Like if I had to cast my Heisman vote tomorrow, if I had to give the vote in tomorrow, I would go number 1 Ashton Jeanty, number 2, Travis Hunter, and number 3, Cam Ward. I do think there should be 5 finalists in New York. Those 3 that I just mentioned, also Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Can you see Travis Hunter usurp Ashton Genty? Yes, you can. Personally, I would vote Ashton Genty 1. If you put a gun to my head right now and told me who do you think is going to actually win the Heisman, not who I would vote for, I do think that Travis Hunter is going to win the Heisman Trophy this year. But right now, and my vote is not determined, but if I had to determine my vote right now, I would give it to Ashton Genty and what he's able to do at Boise State. But it's either going to go one of 2 ways, right? Genty's going to win the award, and then Coach Prime is going to just go crazy over Travis Hunter not winning, or Travis Hunter is going to win the award. Those are the 2 things that are on the table, in my opinion, when it comes to the Heisman Trophy that's handed out 2 Saturdays from now. All righty. 3 Saturdays from now, because you got to get through this weekend and then Conference Championship weekend, and then the weekend of Army-Navy is when they hand out the Heisman Trophy. Real quickly from the Harbaugh Bowl last night, I thought that was a missed opportunity for the Chargers. I thought for most of the first half, the Chargers looked like the better team, and then that decision by John, 4th and 1 on his own 16 to elect to go for it, I thought changed the entire complexion of the game. I know they eventually got a touchdown, then the Chargers answered back with the field goal. They walked into half down by 1. But with that game being as close as it was at half and how aggressive John Harbaugh was, in the second half, you just see it. Really, and I know Dobbins got hurt, but outside of Ladd McConkey, you look at that Chargers offense, and you include Herbert, clearly is excluded from what I'm about to say. But when you look at the weapons that Herbert has, outside of McConkey, I don't trust any of those guys. Like Johnson, how many times did he drop the ball last night? Dobbins ended up getting hurt, which is just unfortunate. You look at a Harbaugh team, they could get a bunch of wins this year. They can maybe win 1 playoff game, but that's the farthest they could go. Their defense got exposed a little bit last night. You're going up against a lethal 1-2 punch of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But that defense is still good for the Chargers. They have a good offensive line. They like to run the football. And then Herbert, we know, has a big, strong arm. But that team I still think is a year away. But for the Ravens side of it, I love what I saw from the Ravens in the second half. However, with that being said, I don't think you get delirious and you go crazy over 1 win with the Ravens. The Ravens, we know, they have a lethal 1-2 punch with the quarterback and the running back. There's questions on that defense. Harbaugh is still a really good coach. Some people are souring on John Harbaugh. I just don't understand it. I heard Hickey, actually, on Sunday. He was talking about Ben Johnson, how Ben Johnson should wait, and he threw out the Ravens potentially open up in a year or 2. There's no way. The only way the Ravens are moving on from John Harbaugh is like 6-7 years from now, or if John Harbaugh elects to retire. John Harbaugh's not on the hot seat whatsoever. So I look at John Harbaugh, I look at Lamar, I look at Derrick Henry. They are probably the 3rd best team in the AFC. The Bills are better. The Chiefs are better, in my estimation. I know the Steelers just beat them, but I'll still trust the Ravens over the Steelers when it comes to a postseason game. The Chargers, they could win 1 playoff game, if that at most. The Broncos could just make the postseason. I don't think they're going to win a playoff game. The Texans haven't been able to beat those really good teams this year. I know they beat the Bills, but I thought that was more so on McDermott than it was actually the Texans, especially at the end of that game. And the Texans have soured from that performance since then. Heck, they just lost to Tennessee. They lost to Green Bay, where Stroud had under 100 passing yards. So I look at the AFC. Interesting what Clay said about the Dolphins. I just think they dug themselves into too deep of a hole where they have climbed out of it. But I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. The Ravens, I think they are the 3rd best team in the AFC, but I'm not going to now all of a sudden say I'm all back in on the Ravens. And I picked them before the season started to get to the Super Bowl. But with how there's been good moments and bad moments this year, you don't want to overreact too much and go all gaga after 1 game and a strong second half up against a team that you should beat. A good team in the Los Angeles Chargers are probably still a year away. Like T. Higgins, when he becomes available this offseason, the Patriots and the Chargers should be all over T. Higgins to get Drake May and also Justin Herbert some help. But I look at the Ravens and I still have an eyebrow raised at them, where it's like, okay, I usually have not crushed Lamar for the postseason struggles. Last year changed the whole thing. Yeah, Derrick Henry, that sucks me back in. The defense, though, has not been good this year. until they are in the Super Bowl, I'll believe it when I see it. So I don't think last night's one of those nights that you latch onto it. It's a good night, but you don't all of a sudden say, oh, this is why the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl this year. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a timeout. Chris Doering's going to stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll preview the upcoming weekend games of the last regular season week of the college football season. You got conference championship next week, and we do have the latest college football playoff rankings coming out later tonight. So Chris Doering's going to join us at the top of the hour. But when we come on back, we'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will get to a news brief on the other side. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Aaron Rodgers has had a mediocre season and said in his weekly spot on the Pat McAfee Show he hasn't made a decision on next year. He said he'd like to return to New York to play, but we'll see how the offseason plays out. Mac Brown's time at North Carolina has come to an end. He was fired just a day after stating his intentions to return. The 73-year-old coach will lead the team in its season finale against NC State. Brown is the school's all-time leader with 113 wins stretched out over 2 stints. The NBA fined the Hawks $100,000 for having Trae Young sit out an NBA Cup game. Thanksgiving is about turkey and football, but also it's become ripe for college basketball fans with great matchups. And there's one tonight between top-ranked Kansas and number 11 Duke. The Jayhawks are off to a 5-0 start, having already beaten one ACC team in North Carolina. Head coach Bill Self said freshman Cooper Flagg presents a big problem.
We did recruiting, I guess made it to the final 3. Talent, athleticism, skill, but there's another element to him that's what makes him different, is that, you know, he's so competitive and tough.
And he leads the Blue Devils in almost every major category. I'm Rich Jacob.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage, no medical exam, and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Let's go to Aaron Rodgers of the Pat McAfee Show today. First appearance since that entire Athletic article. Here is Aaron Rodgers on reports that he refused medical scans and is keeping his injuries private and not letting the team further examine him.
Well, I feel great right now. I mean, I had the week off. I felt really good last week. Our last game we played against the Colts. Felt, as good as I felt in a long time. I will not willingly go on IR without an injury. When it comes to scans, first of all, I played 20 years. I know my body better than anybody. Second of all, I got a great relationship with Zuff over there and the doctors on staff, and we had a lot of great conversations where they, diagnosed what I was dealing with, and I told them how I was feeling. There was no mandate ever. You got to get this scan, and then I was like, I ain't getting a scan. It was. Listen, how do you feel? I told them I know my body well. What do you see in your diagnosis? Okay. What are the risks of playing? And that was that. There wasn't any weirdness around us. Normal conversations.
All righty, that's an interesting piece of audio. Here is Aaron Rodgers on the Diana Rossini report.
Yeah, it's all true.
Okay.
There we go. Boom! Yeah, we start wherever you want to start. Listen, I don't talk to that person. But when it comes to me, I can tell you, again, my circle is really small. I'm not talking to people who are talking to people like that. So this is like, at best, it's a third game of telephone with me. And I don't have, I don't have a relationship with reporters who are going to break stories like this.
You know what's funny? I will wear this feather in my cap. I think I'm the only person in the history of the business to have a report about Aaron Rodgers and for it not to get refuted by Aaron Rodgers. Because my information and the sources that told me that information, that Aaron Rodgers blowing off meetings towards the end in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur, if I told Aaron Rodgers, if I told Mark Murphy, if I told Brian Gutekunst, if I told Matt LaFleur, who that person was, they would all be like, yep, when I had that report. A lot of people thought Rodgers was going to kind of fight that report, but he knew it was true. Rossini has this report, and he just goes, yeah, I don't talk to that reporter. And I feel like anytime there's a report about Aaron Rodgers, that ends up being the case. One more from Aaron Rodgers, the Pat McAfee Show. If he wants to play for the Jets in 2025, we did have Garrett Wilson on earlier. He said that he wants Aaron Rodgers back, but we'll have to wait on his decision. This is Aaron Rodgers if he wants to play for Gang Green in 2025.
As far as my future goes, I haven't told anybody in my life that I want to play in 2025 and not on the Jets. So that's 100% false. I actually said the opposite. I said that I'm going to wait and see what happens at the end of the season and if they want me back and what happens with Brick and what happens with the offensive staff and obviously the GM at the time. And there's a lot of things out of my control when it comes to that. But I've really enjoyed my time in New York. I mean, obviously we haven't had success that we've all wanted to have, but I came here to win here. So I'm not jumping off ship, like, oh, I definitely want to play and not in New York. I don't even know if I want to play yet, but New York would be my first option.
So earlier in the month, I asked Aaron straight up, has it crossed your mind these could be the final 2 months of your career? He chuckled and he said no. Then a few weeks later, he's like, I plan to play next year and I plan to be back now. He doesn't know what he's doing. I think Aaron should retire. I do. I think it's time to just retire and walk away. But if he does want to come back and if he does want to play for the Jets, will the Jets want to have him back? That's another part of the conversation as well. And if the Jets don't want to have you back, where are you going? Like the Colts or the Raiders? Come on. I think it's time to just either, that the Jets want you back, maybe you play one more year, but in all likelihood, you should probably just retire and walk away. Let's go to Jerry Jones in his weekly chat with Sean and RJ at 105.3 The Fan. Jerry Jones, hey, could Mike McCarthy, Big Mike, can you get an extension with this contract coming to an end?
Well, I don't think that's crazy at all. That's not crazy. Listen, Mike McCarthy is an outstanding coach. I was listening to the game last night, watching it, and Aikman was talking about it, and he's reiterated that several times publicly. This Super Bowl winning coach, Mike McCarthy has been there, done that. He's got great ideas. But in no place in my body language or anything else have you seen indications about what we're going to be doing relative to this staff at the end of this year. And we shouldn't.
That is actually the best answer Mike McCarthy that Jerry Jones gave about his coach. Because the way you ask Jerry a question, you never know what you're going to get. The fact that he still kept that on the table is good and respectful of Mike McCarthy. With that being said, I don't think there's any way he's coming back as the coach next year. So Mike Vrabel, former Ohio State Buckeye, coached the defensive line at Ohio State from 2012 to 2013, also was a linebackers coach during the 2011 season. He was on last night, the Manning cast during the Monday Night Football game, and listen to this story that he had to share about Urban Meyer.
I can relate with Owen Wilson. I was listening earlier, and Urban Meyer asked him, "Do I know you?" And Urban Meyer was coaching the Titans. He was coaching the Jaguars, and he actually said the same thing to me. I said, "Yeah, I'm the head coach for the Titans, and I worked for you for 2 years."
So Urban Meyer became the head coach in 2012. So he worked with him for 2012 to 2013. Mike Vrabel was the defensive line coach. There's no way that Urban Meyer didn't know who he was. If he couldn't recognize one of his coaches on the defensive coaching staff 10 years later, and Mike Vrabel really hasn't changed that much in appearance, that's a big-time problem. I kind of feel that there was some sarcasm that was lost there, either from Vrabel or from Urban Meyer. Talking about Ohio State, here is Ryan Day on the importance of the game, Ohio State Game Time, courtesy.
We got to have, that edge, and we will, because we know what's at stake. I mean, we've felt what it's like to not win this game, and it's bad. It's one of the worst things that's happened to me in my life, quite honestly. Other than losing my father and a few other things, it's quite honestly for my family the worst thing that's happened. So we can never have that happen again, ever. And that's been the approach all season.
So dramatic. Come on. I know you lost the last 3 years. It's been embarrassing, but you'll be okay, Coach. You'll get the job done this weekend because Harbaugh's no longer there, and then we'll see if you go win a national championship. So here is Danny Hurley on his costly technical in a loss to Memphis last night.
I had a lot of issues with what went on out there in the game. That over the back call at that point of the game, for that call to be made at that point of the game was a complete joke. I don't know what happened. I might have lost my balance by the absurdity of the call, or maybe I tripped. But if I made that call at that point, I would have ignored the fact that I was on my back. If I made that call, I would have ignored that. How you could call that while that game was going on, the way that game was going on, is just beyond me. But I know, I've never seen the one ref before. I didn't even know he was a college ref. And then, I'm familiar with the other two, so I'm not surprised.
So one person here at the network was very annoyed with Danny Hurley. Manny Rodriguez, who is a part of the Maggie and Perloff show in the mornings on the Infinity Sports Network. Listen to Manny's reaction to Danny Hurley last night.
You guys aren't tired of this act?
You tired of them winning titles? You tired of Coach K he was the same guy, like Bobby Knight, like those guys all win.
Coach K was never what Dan Hurley is a grown-ass man throwing tantrums like he's a 6-year-old who didn't get a toy at Toys R Us. Come on, man. Do I want my 19-year-old, getting coached by this guy who's a lunatic?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's bananas. Absolutely bananas.
He wins.
Questioning his
In
professionalism.
the NBA.
They won 2 titles in a row, man.
Wonderful. That's great. Whoop-de-doo. Throw a parade down stores. Is a grown-ass man. Act like it. If you want to do this at some D2 school that doesn't have the type of pristine program that UConn has
give me a
basketball.
Wait, you being serious about it?
Come on.
Jim Calhoun's UConn? What?
Kevin Ollie's blacklisted from college basketball still, I think.
With the women's program as well. This looks bad for all of UConn basketball, men's and women's program.
Oh, my God. You have it exactly wrong.
What an overreaction. And I thought it's funny that Manny's demanding professionalism and not freaking out while he's freaking out wearing a beanie and a Jalen Brunson jersey. We used to have a boss around here, the legendary Mark Chernoff, and he did not like when producers or board ops were on the air. I could hear Chernoff if he heard that segment. Maggie, Andrew, this is why we don't put the producers and the board ops on the air. We just don't do it. I don't need Manny Rodriguez's fake outrage over Danny Hurley. I just don't need it. What, so he could put the clip on his Instagram for his, 36 followers? Come on. It's the morning. People don't want to hear Manny Rodriguez yell in the morning. They want to hear from Maggie. They want to hear from Andrew. They want to hear from Andrew. They want to hear from Maggie. They don't want to hear from the board op, Manny Rodriguez, or the producer. Okay? Mute his microphone. Oh, wait, he's in charge of the microphones. Tell him not to speak on the air. Okay, just don't do it. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. Chris Doering's going to join us. We'll talk about the weekend upcoming. Big weekend upcoming in college football next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll get to overreaction, proper reaction coming up 20 minutes from now. We will also get closer and closer to the latest installment of the college football playoff rankings, which will come out later tonight. I think this is the way that it's going to shake on out. Oregon, not talking about the exact ranking, just in terms of how the bracket will look. I do believe Oregon will be the 1 seed once again. Texas will be the 2 seed once again. Miami will be the 3 seed once again. And Boise State will be the 4 seed once again. All 4 of those teams receiving byes. And a lot of shakeup from what did transpire last week. Alabama's going to be out. Ole Miss is going to be out as well after Ole Miss did lose to Florida. And Alabama did go down as they got blown out by Oklahoma. And, geez, I still can't believe how bad Jalen Milroe was in that game. But I do think that the 4 first-round matchups that you're going to see after tonight are going to be Ohio State in at number 5 up against Arizona State in at number 12. I think you'll have Penn State 6 up against SMU 11, Notre Dame 7, Indiana 10, And then I do believe it's going to be Georgia 8, Tennessee 9. It's still fascinating to see because that would only mean 3 SEC teams will be in. Those teams being Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Is there a road to still get 4 SEC teams in if Texas A&M beats Texas? If Texas A&M then in the SEC championship game beats Georgia, then A&M can make the college football playoff. But if A&M doesn't win those 2 games, you know that Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee are going to be in. Is there a way that the committee could still find a way for South Carolina, an Alabama, or an Ole Miss and have them get squeezed into and back their way into the college football playoff? If Notre Dame falls this weekend to USC, then Notre Dame could potentially be out. And then there could be a debate coming up in a few weeks. Do you take a 2-loss ACC team or do you put a 3-loss SEC team in? I would have never thought before the season started that we would have seen only 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff, but that's a good possibility of that happening. All right, let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcoming someone who's probably in a good mood these days because his Gators are doing a whole lot better, and he does a great job with the SEC Network on radio and TV, and that, of course, is Chris Doering here with us. Chris, appreciate the time. How you been?
Hey, I'm good. Good to be back with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. So let me start you off with Florida. Earlier in the season, like everybody else, I didn't think it was a matter of if Billy Napier was going to get fired. I thought it was just going to be when. A few weeks ago, the AD comes out. Billy's our guy. Billy's our coach. And then they've had 2 big victories, taking down not only LSU, but the big one this past weekend up against Ole Miss. Just how about what Billy Napier has been able to do to kind of salvage his image towards the end of the season?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned that announcement from Scott Strickland, and you talked about the 2 wins that followed that announcement, but you left out the big loss at Texas. Immediately a couple days later, they're showing Scott Strickland on the sideline, making memes on the internet, making fun of him. And now he looks like the smartest man in the room because you have momentum that you haven't had in the football program in a long time. You have a core group of young players that are attracting all sorts of recruits that are now flipping and giving their commitment going forward. This Florida coaching staff has done a great job in the transfer portal the last couple of years and evaluating guys like Ricky Pearsall, Graham Mertz this past year with Chim Dike and Elijah Badger. So things all of a sudden look incredibly promising. And back in September, I was in the offseason, I thought Florida was going to be a 7-8 win team. And then after losses to Miami and Texas A&M with the style of losing, with the manhandling of Florida by both of those teams, I thought Florida would be lucky to get to 4 wins. Here we are now, in fact, with a chance to get to 7 regular season wins and maybe even an 8th bowl win. I've never seen anything like it, Zach. It's the most remarkable turnaround that I've ever seen. And I honestly believe that Billy Napier deserves to have some sort of consideration for SEC Coach of the Year, given what he's gone through, given how he's been able to hold this team together, and now how they're playing their best football at the end of the season.
Who do you think, though, is the SEC Coach of the Year right now?
Billy Napier.
Oh, so you think it should be Billy Napier, not just consideration he should win it?
I put that out there today on our show. I had him number 1 on my list, Alyssa Lang, and I disagreed a little bit on that. At number 2, I have Clark Lee. At number 3, I have Shane Beamer. At number 4, I have Kirby Smart. And at number 5, I have Steve Sarkisian. So, it's a much more competitive Coach of the Year situation than I thought it would be. And every single year, it has a different criteria for who's deserving of that. A lot of it has to do with what the preseason expectations were. Obviously, Clark Lee and Vanderbilt have exceeded that 2.5 win total that Vegas set for them in the offseason. But look at Florida. They have one of the toughest schedules in the history of college football. They were supposed to win 4.5 games, and here they are again, about to win 7, maybe 8 with the bowl game. And they had to go through some coach that probably he himself, you mentioned everybody thought he was gone. I would probably believe that he too thought he was gone at some point in time and was waiting for the hammer to drop, but he kept the team together in a day and age where the transfer portal has guys 1 foot in, 1 foot out already. This is unprecedented for what he's been able to do, from turning weaknesses on the line of scrimmage into strengths with the way they run the football, with the way they penetrate up front defensively. It is a remarkable turnaround and one that Florida fans hope is a springboard into the playoff in 2025.
Yes. So how likely do you think it is that this is not just a good back-to-back game kind of stretch here, and they could actually use this momentum. Lagway's a heck of a quarterback. He's going to be really good. But some people may look at this and go, hey, nice 2 victories, good story, but once people are out on you, it's tough to get back in for the long haul. Why can this work for the long haul at Florida with Billy Napier?
Well, I don't think there's a more important position in all of sports than the quarterback. And you now have a young quarterback that is committed to the University of Florida. He's committed to his coach, Billy Napier. You're seeing what he's able to do on one leg, mind you. I mean, this guy hasn't even been healthy since pulling his hamstring against Georgia. You haven't seen him in the run game, which is a vital part of his overall package when he's healthy. The throwing percentage right now, I mean, he's completing just over probably 50% of his passes in the last couple ball games. He's going to improve, as he gets more familiar with this offense and they work on the mechanics and his footwork. I think, there's a ton of talent that's already here, freshmen and sophomores that are part of the nucleus of this team right now. They're going to attract tremendous attention in the portal. So I don't have any reason to believe it. I understand the skepticism given the way that Florida started the season this year, but I do believe that Florida's making a statement right now about what they are and what they can be going forward.
Chris Doering here with us. All right, let's get to Alabama. Let's get to Ole Miss. My takeaway from the Alabama game, man, is there a more frustrating player in college football than Jalen Milroe? There's weeks where you see what he did up against Georgia in the first half, what he did up against LSU. He had a horrible game, though, up against Tennessee, a horrible game up against Oklahoma. And then on Ole Miss, that's one of the more disappointing teams in college football to see what they did and how they manhandled Georgia. And then you lose to Florida, no offense. Man, Jackson Dart really missed some opportunities there. How about Bama? How about Ole Miss?
Yeah, let's start with Ole Miss. And, we talk about losing to Florida, but really what killed them was a loss at home to Kentucky. I mean, in the SEC, you're seeing how difficult it is to win on the road. Kirby Smart talked about it a couple weeks ago. You have to win your home games, and you have to win your home games, particularly against the sub-500 teams. That game against Kentucky took away a lot of the margin for error, and they just weren't able to overcome a really challenging environment. I mean, Ole Miss certainly didn't play up to their level of expectation. They had 5 drops in that game. They were 0 of 3 in the red zone, not a single point in that part of the field, went 3 of 14 on third down. So that was not how we've typically seen Ole Miss play this year. But I think you look at just a week ago, I was talking about who are the teams you don't want to play the most in the SEC right now. Number 1 would have been Alabama. Number 2 was Ole Miss in my book. And both of those teams seem to be playing on an upward trajectory. The Alabama thing may be the most head-scratching because I thought that they had figured out how to use this unique talent in Jalen Milroe. I thought that everybody was becoming comfortable in the schemes on the offense and defensive sides of the football. And here we are, they regress against a team like they were manhandled by Oklahoma. And credit to Brent Venables for keeping that team together. If we're going to celebrate what Billy Napier's done, we need to celebrate Brent Venables as well. And probably celebrate Hugh Freeze, 2-3 upset victories with teams that really had nothing to play for. But I'm with you. It's been funny reading a lot of the Alabama fan pages that think it's time for Milroe to move on. I don't know if that's the case or not. If the NFL is going to draft Anthony Richardson in the top 5, I imagine Jalen Milroe's a guy that probably gets the same. But it'll be interesting to see if they move forward with him next year or he decides to move on to the NFL draft. But this was a team that I've been in and out on as the season's gone on. Again, I thought that they figured it out, but to see them fall short with as much on the line, I think speaks to how difficult it is. The pressure starts to squeeze teams, and you talked about games this weekend. There's a lot of games that we don't think are going to be much to pay attention to, but I promise you we're going to talk on Sunday about upsets that we had no idea would have happened because of how tight teams get when it's down the stretch and you're in that running for one of those 12 spots.
Yeah, and I think one of those matchups could be Syracuse up against Miami. And if you're trying to get 4 SEC teams in, hey, one way to do it, A&M runs the table. But with that being said, I don't think that is likely. So maybe you need Notre Dame to lose to USC, and then Notre Dame would be out. It feels like bizarre to say this because I would have never said this before the start of the season. It looks like we're only going to get 3 SEC teams in the college football playoff, where I thought each and every year they would get 4, and maybe in some years they would end up getting 5.
Yeah, literally just 2 weeks ago, I think I was bragging about the SEC having possibly 6, maybe 7 10-2 teams, and it was going to be interesting to see which teams from the SEC that had that 10-2 record got on the left on the outside looking in. Now here we are with Texas at that above that mark, Georgia at that mark as well, but not a whole lot left standing. So you mentioned earlier, do we see a 3-loss SEC team? I think an interesting team to consider is South Carolina, and I know they lost games to Alabama and to Ole Miss, but I do think, one, you have to take into consideration the screw job that they had against LSU. The officiating was brutal in that game. And two, they seem to be figuring things out. I think there's something to be said. If we look back at the committee in the NCAA basketball tournament, they like teams that are playing their best at the end of the season. I think South Carolina has figured it out offensively, pairing that with one of the best, most complete defenses in the country. I think South Carolina would be a tough out. They'd be one of those teams that I wouldn't want to play the most right now if I were a team that it was in contention or in the playoffs.
And I do think South Carolina is going to beat Clemson this upcoming weekend. Let me get your thoughts on Texas against Texas A&M. It would be so college football for A&M to lose to Auburn and then beat Texas, but I'll rock and roll with Texas in this one. How do you see this game playing on out?
I'm on the other side of that one, man. I think what we've seen is how difficult it is to play on the road in the SEC. What I remember is how crazy that scene was when LSU came to town a couple of weeks ago. And what I know is after, a decade or so of not having this game played, it is the most anticipated game in college football in a long time. And I think the environment is going to be intimidating. I think the matchup for Texas is going to be challenging. I still think that they have some questions on the offensive line, and we know that the strength of Texas A&M's team is the defensive front. You look at the offense, the way that they came out of the locker room after halftime, they went 3 and out, fumble, missed field goal. So it's not like they're clicking on all cylinders, and we certainly don't know the health right now of where Quinn Ewers is. So I think there's a lot of reason to believe that Texas could go on the road and lose this ball game. The good thing for them is that they've given themselves some margin for error that Ole Miss and Alabama did not have. So even if they lose that, presumably they're still going to be in the 12-team field. And then that sets up a matchup in the SEC championship game where it's another must-win game for Texas A&M. I know a lot of people have minimized the importance of the SEC championship, but I want to see teams that it matters to, and I think it'll matter a lot to Georgia, and certainly will matter if Texas A&M makes it there.
What's your read on Georgia? The quarterback's been so frustrating. I know he put it together 2 weeks ago, which was good to finally see in Carson Beck, but when I look at Georgia, heck, if you put a gun to my head and said 3 teams to win the national championship this year, I would say Oregon, I would say Georgia, and I would say Ohio State. But give me your read with the ups and downs that we've seen from Georgia this year.
I would agree with you. I'm a little skeptical of Ohio State still, although the defense was impressive against Indiana on Saturday. I believe in Oregon, and I believe in Georgia because of their coach and their experience playing in big ball games. I think this is one of the more incomplete Georgia teams that they've had in a while. The receiver position is one that's been largely disappointing between their inability to separate and not catching the football very consistently. Interesting news that Colby Young is back, practicing, and we'll see, when some of those charges get cleared up and if he's able to return. But I think they've improved in terms of the way they're playing in the secondary. And you mentioned Carson Beck was frustrating. He was frustrating, but it was because everybody else wasn't doing their job. They haven't run the ball like a typical Georgia team has. The offensive line hasn't protected him very well. I think he was trying to do too much. He seems to be back in a good rhythm. The receivers and tight ends seem to be catching the ball a little bit better now. I said this a couple weeks ago after they lost in Oxford to Ole Miss. If Kirby Smart can take this team to the playoff or even a national championship, I think it's his best coaching job that he's had since being in Athens, and I think he definitely deserves Coach of the Year consideration at that point.
Yeah, they clearly miss McConkey and then also Brock Bowers, and I can understand why you would miss those players. You just expected always the Georgia factory just keep out pumping out studs, but that offense at times this year, so many turnovers that we have seen, and you're right on the run game part. They just haven't been able to run the ball effectively this year. All righty, last thing I'll ask you, Heisman Trophy. Do you think it's Travis Hunter's to lose at this point, or do you believe it's going to go to Ashton Genty?
Let's do this. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those two guys. Like, normally we're talking about a guy from the SEC. Is Dylan Sampson maybe the best Heisman candidate from the conference, which is crazy to think about. Not a single quarterback and very limited other guys that we would even talk about being in that mix. But I do think it's Travis Hunter's to lose. I mean, what do Heisman voters love? They love unique players, guys that can do, what we've seen with Charles Woodson and his kick returning ability in addition to playing, in the secondary and some offensive snaps. So I think Travis Hunter showing what he can do on both sides of the ball. Just the conditioning alone that it takes to play the number of snaps that he plays and do it at such a high level is amazing. So I think it's Travis Hunter's award at this point.
Let me just touch on what you said about Tennessee real quickly. How dangerous – they're going to be in the playoff. How dangerous are they? Because I've been really impressed with their defense, but kind of like what we've seen out of Ole Miss and Alabama, their offense at times has been hit or miss this year in some of these games. Is Tennessee now one of those dangerous teams like how we looked at Alabama and Ole Miss a few weeks ago?
Honestly, in the preseason, I was down there for Tennessee's pro day. I had a chance to watch their first scrimmage of the spring, and I was really impressed with what I saw. Based upon that, and the way that Nico played in the final game in the bowl last year, I had Tennessee going 10-2. I think they're a team that could be on big-time upset alert that we talked about, upsets we don't see coming. It's going to be this is not your typical trip to Nashville to play Vanderbilt for Tennessee. If they can survive that, they'll be at that 10-2 number. They don't have to go to the SEC championship game. They'll be in a playoff. The things that we've known about Tennessee are they play tremendous defense. They can rush the passer. They can penetrate, stop the run. They can run the football.
And I think we lost.
Passing game has just been elusive. Did we lose? I'm sorry.
No, we got you, Chris. You're good. You're back. We got you.
To throw the football down the field and be able to hit some of those explosive pass plays that we've known from Josh Heupel's offenses in the past. So it's frustrating. You've seen it at moments. Maybe he's figured it out. He threw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions on Saturday against UTEP, but still some questions as they are a bit incomplete. But is there really any team that you think is being head and shoulders above everybody else? I think they all have flaws, and I think that's a reflection of what we've seen from the transfer portal distributing players across to other teams and not having the depth of talent that the traditional powerhouses have had.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's Chris Doering. Chris, appreciate the time and the insight today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. Take care.
You got it. There he is, Chris Doering, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll keep it moving. We'll take a break. A lot of good college football insight right there. When we come on back, another week of the NFL is complete. We will get to a little overreaction, proper reaction next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy?
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
All righty, overreaction, proper reaction time. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Stu Pac, what do we got cooking today?
All right, so right now the Broncos hold the 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC at 7-5, a full game and a half ahead of the next team, the 5-6 Dolphins. The only other teams in the hunt are the 5-7 Colts and the 4-7 Bengals. So overreaction or proper reaction, one of these sub-500 teams will make the playoffs.
I'm going to say overreaction. I wouldn't mind if the Bengals made it, but I have nothing concrete to hold on to this year to suggest that they're going to play better down the stretch here when their 4 victories are against 4 god-awful football teams. And you look at it right now, the Bills are obviously going to win the AFC East. They're 9-2. Steelers will be a playoff team. They're 8-3. The Ravens are going to be a playoff team. They're 8-4. The Texans are going to win the South. Kansas City's going to be a playoff team. Clearly, they're probably the number 1 seed. They're going to win their division. They're 10-1. I still think the Chargers are going to make the postseason. They got 3 more wins than them. You know, maybe if you only have 2 wins left in you, that's still enough. And then you look at the Broncos, they're already 7-5. So do I think the 5-7 Colts, the 4-7 Bengals, the 5-6 Dolphins are going to be able to usurp the Denver Broncos right now, who are that last spot in the AFC? I don't think so. If you made me say who's the team with the best chance, I would say it's the Miami Dolphins. But I was on with Hochman and Crowder down in Miami on my weekly spot a few weeks ago, and I said, you guys are going to win these next 2 games. And then people are going to be like, oh, at 5-6, they're going to get back in. And then you play Green Bay. You got the Texans coming up. You got the Niners coming up. I know the Texans and Niners aren't as great as what we thought they were going to be. I think they're going to just miss out on the postseason. But if I had to pick any of those three teams, I would pick the Dolphins actually as the team. But I don't think either of the three end up making the playoffs.
Now, speaking of the playoffs, the AFC and NFC each have a team at 10-1 with the Chiefs and Lions. And both conferences have 3 other teams with 8 or more wins, including the Bills, Steelers, Ravens in the AFC, and the Eagles, Vikings, and Packers in the NFC. However, the top-heavy AFC has 6 teams with 3 or fewer wins, while the NFC has only 2 such teams. So overreaction or proper reaction, the NFC is a better conference than the AFC this year.
I'm going to say so because I look at the AFC. Who could I see getting to the Super Bowl out of the AFC? It's the Chiefs and it's the Bills. And if you maybe put a third team in there, I guess it would be the Ravens. In the NFC, it's the Lions, it's the Eagles. And then I just think when you get to that grouping for who the third team's going to be, it's open. But you look at the Vikings, you look at the Packers. I just think there's better quality teams in the NFC. You look in the postseason, and you see the Chargers and the Broncos could potentially be postseason teams this year. In the NFC, even the Falcons winning the NFC South, they're going to be a double-digit win team. So I do think that the NFC is better. And also at the top, personally, I like the Lions and the Eagles right now as the 2 best teams in the NFL. So I think it's not, hey, one significantly better than the other. The NFC has not only closed the gap, I think the NFC has been playing better football this year too. So it's close, it's splitting hairs, but I give the edge to the NFC. I'm just more intimidated right now by the Lions and the Eagles. And in the AFC, I know I'm pro Buffalo, and the Chiefs lost to the Bills, but even with that being said, can Josh Allen, can Lamar Jackson, can those guys get the job done come postseason time?
2-time Pro Bowler and former NFL sack leader Shaquille Barrett has applied for reinstatement and hopes to unretire and return to the NFL after calling it quits this offseason. Now, Barrett, who has won 2 Super Bowls and had 10 sacks as recently as 2021, still has his contractual rights owned by the Dolphins. Overreaction or proper reaction, Barrett could make a real impact for a contender this year.
So I'm going to be curious to see how this plays on out because we had Shaquille Barrett on at some point in the offseason, and he made his decision to go to Miami, and he revealed to us that the Jets were trying to get him, and he thought he was going to go to the Jets, and then the Dolphins swooped in. Imagine if he wound up on the Jets. And he would have left the Jets, obviously, because he hasn't played yet this season. So are the Dolphins now being in it, or are they going to kind of say, hey, we're not going to just release you. You got to play for us if you want to play. We have your rights because you can't trade him. You're way past the trade deadline. Or does it turn into one of those things where they go, okay, we've done this without you, we'll just let you go? If I'm the Dolphins, I'm not letting him go. So I would say you either play for us or you don't play for someone. But if you ask me, Barrett, if he is made available and he goes somewhere else, could he make a real impact for a contender this year? Yeah. I don't know what kind of shape he's in, but I would imagine it would be in situational packages. And does that guy still have the ability to give you a few positive plays for, per game and go get a big sack in a contest, in a playoff game? Absolutely. I still think he's capable of that. So I do think he can make a real impact for a contender this year. But if I'm Miami, why would you let him go? I wouldn't if I'm the Dolphins. So you say Barrett could make a real impact for a contender this year? Yeah, if he's made available, sure. Proper reaction.
Lamar and the Ravens improved to 8-4 after their win over the Chargers last night. But the defending MVP streak of 7 straight games over 200 yards passing was snapped as he threw for just 177 yards. However, Lamar is still projected to shatter his career highs in both passing yards and touchdown passes, but will likely be under 1,000 yards rushing for the 4th straight season. Overreaction or proper reaction, Lamar needs to run more if the Ravens hope to win a Super Bowl.
I'm going to say overreaction here, and here is why. Because you brought in Derrick Henry, so that's going to take away how much you're going to need to run with Lamar Jackson. But the Ravens can't get to this point, what they tried to do in the AFC Championship game last year, and win the game with the passing being the main focus point. I think what they're doing right now is working. My biggest concern, quite frankly, is can the defense show up? And then also, can Lamar win the same game? I think the formula is fine. What they did last night, I thought it was fine because when Henry's running the way like that, and then you also have the ability of Lamar to take the ball away from Henry and then run it himself and stop short on a dime and then still get into the end zone, that will be fine. But you can't do what you did in the AFC Championship game where it's like, oh, we're going to try to win by just throwing the football. So I get the question, but I think what they did last night is fine. They just need to make sure they can figure out what they're going to get out of their defense the rest of the way.
All right, last one here. A report yesterday revealed that now free agent Daniel Jones could wind up in San Francisco if Brock Purdy's injury keeps him out longer than expected.
Before you continue here, can I just preface this by saying whatever question you're about to ask me about Daniel Jones, I'm so sick and tired of talking about Daniel Jones. The dude's not a good quarterback. You know, this idea now that he's a hot commodity, I get it. He's someone that you would want to have as a backup. But the fact that these shows are giving, like, Daniel Jones reports, we got a Daniel Jones question, like, give me a break. How much of a sympathetic figure Daniel Jones has become, it makes me want to puke, if I'm just being honest. But you know what? I'll be a good team player here, Stu. Ask me the question, and I'll see if I'll give you an answer.
He took the Raiders off his list, I saw.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Daniel Jones, you're really not in a position to tell any team no, okay? I understand why you wouldn't want to go to the Raiders. At least you'd be a starting quarterback. With him being selective now, how that's even a report that he could say no to a team. Please, give me a break with Daniel Jones. Hey, I know he's a hardworking guy, good teammate, you know, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's obnoxious to me right now. He's really obnoxious with all this negotiating power that he has. The dude should have never been picked 6 overall, and the dude's not a good quarterback. Any highway robbery with the amount of money that guy makes. Good for him. You know, I would love to be terrible at my job and make that much money. All right, I would love for that to be the case. Please, if Infinity Sports Network wants to pay me $160 million, go ahead and then have me just get on the radio and not say anything, would be wonderful. Would love to live in a world like how Daniel Jones lives.
So Jones is being linked to the Vikings, and their head coach, Kevin O'Connell, seems to be a big fan of him.
You know, I'm sure now that he's, you know, a free agent and there's probably a ton of league-wide interest in him, you know, Daniel's going to make the decision that's best for him and his career moving forward. But I really can't get into too much about any short-term or long-term. I can just say I've, you know, been a fan of Daniel's for a long time and hope, you know, wherever his next stop takes him, it's a good opportunity for him.
You didn't say whether there's interest or not, or
really not going to get into that at this time.
All right, so overreaction or proper reaction, the Vikings should bring in Daniel Jones to back up Darnold.
If I'm Daniel Jones, I would consider the 49ers because, right, we don't know the status of Purdy. I would also consider the Vikings because they have a really good team, and look at the way that they made Sam Darnold look like a competent quarterback. And also, I saw Sam Darnold leave the game last week. I know he came back in, but, you know, then you're only one hit away. So, yeah, I would say that the Vikings, I don't think it would be a bad decision to bring him in because, once again, Daniel Jones is a good backup. He's not a good starting quarterback. He would be a good backup. So if you're trying to improve that area of your team and maybe there's a little concern about Darnold, and McCarthy's out for the year, I would have no problem with that. So proper reaction. The Vikings should bring in Daniel Jones to back up Sam Darnold. All righty, that's overreaction. Proper reaction. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. I'm a big hockey guy. And Paul Bissonnette, Biz, who does a great job, Barstool Sports, spitting chiclets, and also NHL on TNT, he was being a good person. He saw at a restaurant there was an altercation with a dope and a manager. And the dope decided to get physical with the manager. And Biz tried to diffuse the situation and said, hey, buddy, if you keep on putting your hands on the manager, we're going to have problems. And then 6 of that dope's friends elected to jump Paul Bissonnette. Now, I've seen the mugshots of the 6 dopes. They look pretty beat up. And I saw the video that Biz put out there, and he looked pretty damn good for having to fight 6 or 7 dudes. So we'll play you some of that audio on the other side. Also talk a little college football playoff rankings to wrap up the show as well on a Tuesday when we return in a few moments. But first up with the latest update, here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Aaron Rodgers said he hasn't made a decision yet on next year, telling the Pat McAfee Show that he'll wait until after the season to see how everything with the Jets shapes out but said if he does return, New York is his first choice. The careless driving and seatbelt violations against Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill have been dropped. Just a day after saying he'd be back at North Carolina next year, the school has fired head coach Mack Brown with 3 years left on his contract. The 73-year-old is in his 6th season in his second stint at the school, whereas the all-time winningest coach at the Tar Heels are currently 6-5, entering the season finale against North Carolina State, which Brown will coach. The Hawks were fined $100,000 by the NBA for violating the league's player participation policy. They were penalized for holding Trae Young out of an NBA Cup game, a game he could have played in, following an investigation that included a review by an independent physician. In the NBA tonight, the Suns, looking to snap a 5-game skid, will host the Lakers and will have both Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal in the lineup. College basketball right now, second-ranked UConn coming off its first loss of the season, trying to bounce back, leading Colorado 72-71. It's Texas A&M in front of Oregon at the half, 32-29, and San Diego State down Creighton 71-53. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
So, Stu, two things I want to get your thoughts on before we get on out of here. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's play you that Mike Vrabel sound again. This is on the ESPN's Manning Cast. Mike Vrabel tells a little story about Urban Meyer, who he did work for underneath for 2 years when Urban Meyer first got to Ohio State. Listen up.
I can relate with Owen Wilson. I was listening earlier, and Urban Meyer asked him, "Do I know you?" And Urban Meyer was coaching the Titans. He was coaching the Jaguars, and he actually said the same thing to me. I said, "Yeah, I'm the head coach for the Titans, and I worked for you for 2 years."
So is that just sarcasm by Vrabel? Like, was that a joke that Urban Meyer said when he saw him? He's like, "Hey, by the way, buddy, do I know you?" Was that kind of one of those like fake laughter, ha 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 ha, ha kind of encounters when Urban Meyer sees Mike Vrabel? Do you think there's a chance that Mike Vrabel could have been the defensive line coach at Ohio State 2 years under Urban Meyer, where the guy he was replacing was Luke Fickell, and Luke Fickell and Mike Vrabel are close friends, and Urban just doesn't know with how crazy he is and how he basically is a micromanager, how he wouldn't know who Mike Vrabel is?
I think it's definitely sarcasm. I think the question is who was being sarcastic. Was it Vrabel last night in his story, or was it Urban being sarcastic to Vrabel during this occurrence?
I think it was Urban being sarcastic to Vrabel.
Yeah.
And maybe this is why Mike Vrabel's not head coach right now.
Didn't pick up on it.
Maybe he didn't detect the sarcasm. Or maybe Mike Vrabel's like, this D-bag Urban Meyer is going to disrespect me like that. Or, we never had a good relationship and now he pretends not to know me. Maybe that could be what it was as well.
I mean, he's not like some intern. He's the defensive line coach,
and
right?
Also, not for nothing.
And the legend, too.
But, yeah, I love Mike Vrabel. My uncle used to sit there and be like, one of the best open field tacklers in football, Mike Vrabel, like each and every Sunday. The guy's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, caught a touchdown pass as a defensive player in the Super Bowl, and he's a Buckeye. It's not like this was just Joe Schmo was coaching your defensive line, and the only reason he's there is because your defensive coordinator wanted him as on the defensive line, and you had no clue who he was, and you're coaching at South Harmon Institute of Technology. You're that coach of Ohio State. You're going to know who your defensive line coach is. So I thought it was crappy sarcasm by Urban Meyer, and I guess the joke just didn't land with Mike Vrabel. But how about this? I think this story is just absolutely crazy. So we condensed this because it was like a 15-minute clip. This is Paul Bissonnette, the former hockey player, does a great job NHL on TNT. He's basically the Charles Barkley of television in the hockey world. That's what Biz is basically like, and he does a great job with Spit and Chicklets as well, the Barstool Sports podcast. So this is Paul Bissonnette detailing a brawl that he was involved in at a restaurant when he was just trying to be a good Samaritan.
I go to this place called Houston's, and all of a sudden you could just hear a commotion at the bar area. And I look over, and there's this gentleman in a red golf shirt along with about 9 other guys. He's being asked to leave by the smaller assistant manager. And this guy is just screaming in his face, creating a ruckus. So this gentleman with a lime green golf shirt, who's kind of being the antagonist, starts putting his finger in the manager's face and backing him up onto the back side of the bar. I get up and I go over. I grab the guy's arm. I said, listen, buddy, if you keep harassing and assaulting the staff here, I said, we're going to go outside and we're going to have some problems. The minute that left my mouth, the guy beside him starts throwing punches. And then next thing you know, there was about 4 guys swinging at me. And I'm eating punches. I'm getting pushed against the bar. My shirt gets ripped off. We're all of a sudden now in the parking lot, and they keep coming. And they get me down. They're throwing punches. I'm able to get back up. I lose my shoe. I would say about the entire time, there was about 5 to 7 of them. They were seeing red and there was no stopping them. And I just kept fighting away. Now that bald gentleman who originally threw the first punch now starts making a beeline and sprints past all the guys coming at me. And I catch him with a nice right and buckle him. That seemed to ignite them again. And 4 of them got me. They got me on the ground and I ate 3 kicks, 1 in the neck, 2 in the head. Thankfully, the cops were called right away while the thing was going on in Houston's, and they were able to book 5 of these guys. Like, I'm so fired up right now. I would be willing to waive every single charge if I could go behind a barn somewhere and go 1v1 every guy, one after the other.
So, first off, it's a crazy story. But what makes it even crazier, if you tell me Paul Bissonnette, a rough former hockey player, if he got into a fight with 2 dudes, do I think that he could beat 2 dudes up in a fight? Yes, I could. I actually used to have this debate with one of my friends, Stu, because I'm a lot bigger than the rest of my friends. 2 of my friends, they think that if they were fighting me 2-on-1, that they would be able to beat me. And I laugh in their face every time they have this conversation and they're serious about it. I would absolutely destroy them. So if you tell me 2-on-1, okay, I could see it. When it's 6 or 7-on-1, I don't care who you are. You're an absolute savage if you're able to walk away the way that Biz did walk away. Because if you think it's 7-on-1, I'm even surprised Biz is able to talk. And you look at him, face is a little swollen, but nothing crazy. Maybe there's a little cut. There's no noticeable black and blues. And then I saw these 6 bozos and their mugshots. I think he said 7 dudes, but I think only 6 got arrested. Their faces are swollen. I know that they were drunk, but it looks like they didn't even know what hit them. So he must have got some pretty good jabs in, and he must have got some pretty good punches in, and that's pretty badass. 6 or 7-on-1, and you're able to tell this story, and you were being a good dude trying to help out the manager at the restaurant when you had this drunk as a skunk kind of guy just walk in, and he's trying to get into a fight? That's the stunning part to me here, Stu. I know he's a former athlete. I know he's a savage, all that stuff. He's a crazy guy, Biz. I love Biz. But he's crazy. He's nuts. He's awesome. But to be able to walk away from that and have the other 6 or 7 guys look like they're more banged up than you in a fight is one of the wildest things I've ever heard. Once again, 2-on-1, I take Biz. 7-on-1? Oh, how dumb and how drunk were those 7 guys that Biz is like, the fact that he's even able to talk today is kind of crazy. That's a wild story still.
Almost seems unbelievable, to be able to do that. I don't know. How big would the person have to be able to take on 7? I don't know if there is. Shaq in his prime.
Even though, 7 people against a lot of people. 1. I've seen, there's crazy videos of some of these people, the way that they just act these days in the city, where you see 7 teenagers, they'll jump on a grown man, and it's like, what can you do? If you have 7 people run up on you, I don't care if you're King Kong, for crying out loud. I don't care if you're the Hulk. It's almost impossible. But the fact that Biz was able to punch some of these guys and be able to get away from this whole thing, more power to him. What a crazy, and I mean a crazy story that is. All righty, that will do it for the Zach Gelb Show today. When I look at the college football playoff rankings tonight, once again, I'll reiterate this. I have Oregon, Texas, Miami, Boise State getting the buys. And I do think tonight Ohio State will be up against Arizona State, 5-12. Penn State up against SMU, 6-11. Notre Dame 7, Indiana 10, and Georgia 8, Tennessee 9. We are actually off the rest of the week. This is the last show of the week. Tomorrow we are all off as a show. Thursday we're all off as a show. And Friday we are all off as a show. I'll be on Saturday from 9 to 9:30 on WFAN in New York City. You can listen on the free Odyssey app if you are not in the New York area. And I'm off Sunday. I'm actually going to the Patriot game. Pat's Colts. I'm going to be doing a little tailgate. So I am off on Sunday, and then we'll be back Monday to recap all the mayhem from rivalry weekend in college football and another crazy NFL Sunday. And, not to get mushy and all lovey-dovey here at the end of the show, but it is Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday of the year. If you do like to eat turkey, I think there's something wrong with you. Unless if it's a deep-fried turkey with some Cajun seasoning. Lasagna is better than turkey. But in all kidding aside, when we go through all this fun that I have each and every year when it comes to Thanksgiving, we're extremely thankful, whether it's for 2 minutes, whether it's for 1 minute, whether it's for all 3 hours, that you do tune in and you make us a part of your day, whether it's to get a distraction, whether it's to get a laugh, or whether it's to get some serious sports talk, obviously, because we give you that as well. So we appreciate that. And I just want to make mention of this before we get on out of here. A good friend of the program, someone that has worked on this show a while, in Pat Boyle, unfortunately, lost his father, who passed away. And Pat's dad, who I'm in a fantasy football league, or was in a fantasy football league with, very good dude, funny guy. I was texting Pat the other night. We were looking back at his dad's life, and we were joking around how he picked the Cleveland Browns as a defense in the 6th round of a fantasy draft. And that gave everybody a good laugh. But unfortunately, we lost Bobby Boyle, Pat's father. And, we just want to send our thoughts and our condolences and our well wishes to the Boyle family. And, Thanksgiving, why I love it so much, it's all about food, football, and family. So for people who are no longer with us, we obviously remember you. And for people that are able to spend time with their family, those moments are so special because you never know when it's somebody time. So I just wanted to make mention of that and our condolences to Pat and the entire Boyle family. All right, that will do it. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Big thanks to Garrett Wilson for stopping by. Big thanks to Clay Harbor for coming on, and Chris Doering as well. And also like to thank my crew, Samter, Stu, Ack, and each and every one of you for tuning on in. We'll talk to you Monday, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Happy Thanksgiving. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute break.